All sports, all the time.
There's heroes and there's legends. Heroes get remembered. Legends never die.
This is the Spoken Podcast.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
I'm your host, Lance Twidwell.
Man, that kid, he can ball, man. He can ball.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
That was freaking Mahomes, baby!
Let's talk some sports, because that's what we're here to do.
You are tuned in to The Spoken.
This is the Spoken Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Twidwell, here inside the Starcade Media Studios with my guys, Trevor Twidwell.
What's good?
And Eddie Ortiz.
Yo.
Who's been on hiatus, but he's back with us to this time. Guys, episode 212 is in full swing, full motion. We are so happy to be here with you and for you to be here with us, whether you are live streaming, whether you are podcasting, or whether you are YouTubing. We want to thank you so much for being with us in this time, as we have so much to get to, so much to unpack, because less than 2 weeks from today, while we're doing this live stream, we will be having the NFL draft, and not just an NFL draft, we will be having an NFL draft in our backyard. Not literally, that'd be pretty sweet. I ain't gonna lie, it'd be badass. We don't have a very big backyard, but it is in Kansas City, and this is something that is very special to us here. I know the NFL draft is special to every NFL fan, from the casual viewer to the constant consumer like us here, but to have it in our backyard for the first time is something that is very special, and we're so happy to be able to talk about it, to be able to break it down, to be able to give you guys our viewpoints on what we see from the draft as a whole, but more importantly, when it comes to the Chiefs and what we anticipate that they're going to do with their 10 picks. Are they going to take 10 players? Are they going to trade up? Are they going to trade back? We never really understand the madness behind the mind of Brett Veach. All we do know is we know he's going to do something that's going to be the equivalent of fireworks, and we're really excited to find out what's going to happen, which is why we, for the first time, fellas, in a long time, got a motherfucking guest on the show. Really excited about that. I hope you guys are too. Eddie did a backflip before the show. He was really excited about it. Our guy from Sports Radio 810 WHB, Jack Johnson, does a lot of the night shows in Kansas City. He definitely speaks everyone into the midnight oil, if you will. He's one of the most talented, most underrated host in Kansas City, and I'm so glad to finally have him on the show. I've been on the show with him several times in 810, and we've always had a blast. The show always flies by. I'm certain that's exactly how this is going to go today. We're going to get him on the show today to discuss what he sees going down in the draft, if he sees any other acquisition going down in free agency trades before the draft, during the draft, after the draft. We're going to find out about Chris Jones from his point of view. So much to get to. We're going to get to him probably around 45 minutes or so, so I hope you guys are strapped in and ready to go. But we're going to start here with Eddie and Trev, because I have some thoughts, as I always do, to start the show off that I definitely want to get your guys' viewpoint on. I'm sure the Eddie Hour is going to be awesome. I'm sure we're going to have plenty to talk about with the NBA, whatever else Eddie has going on. We have MMA shows tonight in Kansas City as well. Kansas City, I'm telling you, man, it's the place that's popping right now. I will actually be attending that. But I want to start with the Chiefs, and it was something that I had a really great opportunity this last week, getting to talk to Chiefs legend Tamba Hali on Twitter Spaces with our guy Mark Gunnels and Jody Newsom and Lexi and all those great people that I get to discuss Chiefs stuff with all the time. And we had a space, and something that I got a chance to talk about with Tamba. You know, when you're getting an opportunity to talk to somebody like that, you want to make sure you're not wasting their time, because their time is valuable. And it was nice enough for Tamba and Sean Smith and even Mike DeVito showing up to the spaces to discuss what we, fans want to talk about when it comes to the draft. And most of it's primarily the draft. And that's what I wanted to attack. And when I got my chance to talk to Tamba, the thing I came to him with was more of a take, and I wanted to get his reaction on, was the trajectory of how this team is being built when it comes to constantly being in contention. We know that getting the big names is something that always is fun for us fans to chew on before the season starts, but we also know that Brett Veach sees it a lot differently, and I equated it to the way that the Patriots built their team for 20 years with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, where you have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes down here in Kansas City, that as long as you had a top 10 to 15 defense, at worst you were going to be in Super Bowl contention, because of the fact that you know that you already have the most important parts taken care of with the head coach, with the quarterback. We know we have that here in Kansas City. So now, in my opinion, as long as the Chiefs have a top 10 to 15 defense, the Chiefs are going to be just like the Patriots, where they're going to be in Super Bowl contention for the next decade plus. And we have to remember that there's so much of Patrick Mahomes' career that's still ahead of him. We feel like he's been the quarterback now here forever because these 5 years have been so incredible, and there's so much that's gone on in that time where the Chiefs are always in the AFC Championship and have been in the Super Bowl literally over half of those seasons. So we know that there's still so much left with Patrick Mahomes. We know that Travis Kelce's still playing at a high level. So we want to make sure that the Chiefs are going to extend the prime years of those two players. The good thing for Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce is they have a genius, an offensive genius, an offensive guru at head coach that's going to help them continue to extend and spread out their prime years and let them play longer than they probably would at any other system or any other scheme under any other coach. That's what's special about what the Chiefs have, particularly on the offensive side. But on the defensive side, we know that there's a much better than great chance that the Chiefs and Chris Jones are going to come to an agreement, an extension in place for him to essentially stay here for the majority of the remainder of his career. Whether it's just his prime years, whatever the fact is, I truly believe that Chris Jones is going to be a Chief for the next 3 to 4, maybe even 5 seasons, depending on how many years the Chiefs and Chris Jones agree upon. And we know that Chris Jones wants to be here. And we also know that Chris Jones is really, if you look at the defense as currently constructed, is the only guy that's going to be making any real money for the next couple of seasons. And so my mentality is something that my guy RJ, that is one of the most talented artists in the Chiefs community, said himself, and something I echo as well, is that you pay for offense and you draft for defense. And that's what I presented Tamba, that's what I presented Sean, and I presented Mike DeVito as well, is as much as we have to fixate on extending Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce's careers, and in particular their prime years, we have to do the same thing here in Kansas City with Chris Jones. You can't expect him to carry a bunch of guys. And if we're being honest, for the majority of last season, that's exactly what took place. Now, you can get away with that when Chris Jones is 27, 28 years old, but he'll be 29 years old this upcoming season. And then he'll be 30. And before you know it, he'll be into his 30s. I still expect Chris Jones to be playing at a very high level for the next 3 or 4 seasons because he's just one of those unicorn one-of-one players. Having said that, though, you can't expect him to be this guy with a bunch of guys in 3 years. So what do the Chiefs have to do? Stockpile young, cheap talent around Chris Jones. Now, they did go get Charles Omenihu, who's only 25 years old, and this kid's a freak of nature. He had 54 quarterback pressures last season. Obviously, that's a lot easier to do when you have Nick Bosa and a lot of those other talented 49er defensive players around him, but he's coming now with Chris Jones, and now year 2, George Karlaftis. I still believe the Chiefs are going to add another veteran pass rusher, whether it's Frank Clark coming back, whether it's Justin Houston. I do think they're going to get somebody on the cheap to come back here to Kansas City and help them with these younger guys up front. But I think with the talent that the Chiefs now have at linebacker, with Nick Bolton, with Willie Gay, with Leo Chenal, with Drew Tranquill, they have so much talent in the linebacker core that if they stockpile guys in this draft, which, by the way, is a heavy defensive line and edge rush draft, you're going to make Chris Jones' career and job, quite frankly, that much easier for him to succeed at a high level for the foreseeable future. So when I presented Tamba Hali this question, or rather this take, he 100% agreed with me. And if you haven't seen it, if you haven't listened to it yet, go to our YouTube channel, which, by the way, if you've not already subscribed, please go ahead and do that, guys. Hit the notification button so you see every single time we go live here. But we posted the video, and Tamba said it. You can hear himself. He says he believes that Patrick Mahomes is going to be a quarterback that wins 5 or more Super Bowls. And I 100% believe that as well. And I don't think that it's crazy to any of us to think that at the end of Patrick Mahomes' career, whether that's, age 38, 39, 40, whatever it is, that the Chiefs may not have, they could very well have 5 championships on that belt by the time he's done, he hangs it all up. The Chiefs already have 2, and he just turned 27. So the way I look at it is the best way of doing it is making sure that Patrick Mahomes has the security on the other side. Obviously, we all want to see him have superstar wide receivers. We want to see Travis Kelce continue to play the way he does. But in my opinion, the best way to continue to build a Super Bowl winning team is making sure that Patrick Mahomes stays on his feet and you protect him up front. And on the other side, you make sure that the other side of the ball, you're going and getting the other quarterback and making life difficult for them. So we're less than 2 weeks away from this draft. We obviously will have our prediction show next week. We'll talk about, as we we do every single year, what we think the Chiefs are going to do in this draft. But I want to ask you guys this question. With the trajectory of the next 3 to 5 years, is it the same to you guys that we have to make sure you're stocked? Because the fascination right now in Kansas City is, you go get a wide receiver in the first round. I know that's something a lot of fans want to see.
It's a sexy pick.
It is, but look at it like this last year. The Chiefs had 2 first-round picks. They had 2 first-round picks and 12 total. And they didn't take a wide receiver one time in the first round, and they even traded up in the first round. Mm-hmm. And they still didn't do that. And last season's draft was littered with top-tier talent at wide receiver. If you wanted to trade up and get a Garrett Wilson or a Jamison Williams or guys like that, that would have made sense. This year, there aren't those guys, especially for the Chiefs. At 31, they don't have 2 first-round picks to afford to make this said trade, and they have 2 fewer picks than they had a year before. They still have tons of picks, but most of those picks are in the mid to late rounds. Now, that is where Brett Veach usually flourishes, but the point remains. It needs to be a fixation on the interior presence needs to be at the top of its game. If you have a great offensive line for Patrick Mahomes, you can face one of the greatest pass rushes in NFL history, like the Eagles, and not give up a sack. That was a difference in why the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. But the biggest reason why the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year, more than even Patrick Mahomes himself, was the play that Nick Bolton and the pass rush made on Jalen Hurts. What did we talk about how which quarterback's going to make the mistake?
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes didn't make a mistake. He was damn near perfect in that game.
Especially in the second half.
But Jalen Hurts is the one that made the one mistake. Now, obviously, it wasn't a strip sack or anything like that, but the alertness, having those kind of guys up front is what made the difference in a scoop and score, and that's why the Chiefs won a 3-point game on a single touchdown from the defense. It changed everything.
Yep.
The Eagles were winning that game for the majority of that time until that play happened.
Yep.
So, in my opinion, if I'm the Chiefs going into this draft and going into the next several drafts, I'm making sure that we stockpile defense and offensive line every single time. If you guys look at the last 16 picks the Chiefs have made in the draft, 9 of them are on the defensive side. Now, have all of them worked out? No. You have your Joshua Kandos, you have guys like that just don't pan out, but that's going to happen, regardless of which side of the ball you draft.
Right.
But if I'm going to take risks, if I'm going to say, hey, look, we're going to swing heavy, and it's going to be because we believe this guy or this particular position is something that we have to have, I want that to be on the defensive side. Trevor, how do you see this go? Do you agree with this? Do you agree with what Tamba was? Because, like I said, Tamba thinks if we do this the same way, it's going to be 5 Super Bowls, a 5 Super Bowl recipe here in Kansas City. Do you see it the same way, or do you maybe lean more on the offensive side? You want to see the Chiefs worry about skill positions a little bit more?
I mean, think about it. There's a recipe for success, and like you said, you draft on defense. Well, you draft young on defense, you get better defense, and you buy offensive assets that are proven commodities in the league. And I think that's been a proven way to win. And I think the Patriots have done things like that for a long time, and they didn't even have to. They literally was stocking up and trusting their all-pro, all-time quarterback to go out there and win with the weapons that he has and protect him while having a top 10, top 5 defense in the league. That is a winning formula no matter what era you're in. You know what I mean? So, for me, you already know me, man. I'm all about defense. Everybody at my job keeps asking me, what do you think? Where do you think we should go with this first pick or these first couple picks or first few picks? I'm like, dude, especially in the first 2 picks, first couple picks, I want to go defense. I want to get edge rushers because we don't know what Amenahu is going to be capable of, and we know he might be more of an internal defensive lineman, guy that's going to be better up the gut, stopping the run. That's cool, but we need guys that are going to get after the quarterback because George Karlaftis is not going to be the guy at all times.
Right.
We need some speed on the edge. Getting rid of Frank Clark is a massive. There's a need there now. We don't have a fast guy on the edge anymore right now because Frank Clark, say what you want about him, the dude was very good at setting the edge and very good at being that speed rusher guy. Yeah. Whether he's actually trying to actively get after the quarterback or not, or set up the other guy on the other side, George Karlaftis, whoever, Carlos Dunlap, whoever it was, to have success, we need another guy that can get to the quarterback quickly. Because I think George is a really good bull rush kind of guy, very strong, great motor guy that's never going to stop until the whistle. But you need a guy that's going to have that speed and that elusiveness to get to the quarterback. So it's always edge rush for me in the first early rounds because those guys tend to go quicker. I think those guys go quicker than most depending if it's like a quarterback heavy, which this is a quarterback heavy draft, at least in the first few picks, first handful of picks. Like a lot of great quarterback talent is going to go early because a lot of teams need quarterbacks right now. So I think that'll be a trend, and I think obviously, like I said, defensive ends and edge rush guys always go fast, and so I think if we're going to be in the first round, first couple rounds, I think focusing on that. especially with the savings we already have on the defense. Why not add more talent on more savings on the defense and stack talent that way? And you have the best quarterback in football, man. We've discussed this ad nauseum on the show. When you have the best quarterback in the game, he figures it out. He figured it out last year. He had a guy like Juju come in year one. We won a Super Bowl with him after we lost arguably the best talented receiver in the league.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you can win that way, and that was supposed to be a year where everyone was doubting us. Everyone was, expecting us to take a step back. You know what I mean? So if you can win that way, and I still expect moves to be made on the offensive side for sure.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the draft and how I see us sustaining a success for longevity reasons, we're not a team that needs to go all in. We're not the Rams of a couple years ago. We're not a team that's trying to get that flash in the pan Super Bowl.
Right.
That's not what we're doing. We signed Patrick Mahomes here for that 10+ year contract. He's been funny with his money since he's been here, flexible, trying to keep guys here. Chris Jones is going to get extended at some point.
He's going to be the 9th highest paid quarterback by week 1.
Right.
Like, it's insane to
that
think about.
shows you that's true leadership. That's a guy that just wants to win. He's cherishing winning and having a legacy more than it is, like I said, being a Matthew Stafford. No offense to him, but going and taking the chance at the flash in the pan Super Bowl, a guy that's been good this whole year, but he's been in a shitty team his whole
short
career.
window.
Of course.
It works. But
that's not what we're doing here.
Right.
We're doing things, I hate to say it, but more of the Patriot-esque way, the way they did it. And no one ever probably thought that could be replicated, but no one's ever come close to possibly being able to replicate that until now.
This is the recipe.
We have the coach. We have the quarterback. We have the best coach and best quarterback in football right now. Period. That's what the Patriots have for that longest point of time, right? We can argue if Tom Brady was actually the best quarterback talent-wise. He probably wasn't. I think Peyton Manning was at that time. That could be discussed. But regardless, you have a guy. You have the guy in the league, and you have the coach in the league right now. So I think it's common sense of what you laid out there for Tamba in that conversation. I think it was... Honestly, for me, it's common sense, but a lot of people just want this sexy pick. A lot of people want the name. A lot of people want that flashy guy coming out of the draft. That doesn't always work for teams. It works for those guys can always be great and have great careers.
Yeah.
The Randy Mosses and all these guys. But what do they really win in their career?
Right.
You know what I mean? That's great. You can have that Randy Moss guy. You can have that. The all those other guys that have come in and the Justin Jefferson's has been great so far. Offensive Player of the Year. One shit.
Right.
Give me the chips, dude. I want to do what we got to do to sustain and keep this boat afloat on top of the surface while everyone's underneath the surface trying to get what we have when we're sitting up there. So, you know what I mean? That's where I'm at, and I 100% agree with you. I think that's the way to do it. And I think the formula, and I think the way we're thinking about it right now, I think is obviously what's being manifested in behind closed doors, and I think that's Brett Veach's vision as well, and I think that's Patrick Mahomes' vision as well, and I think Chris Jones knows that as well while he is doing everything he can to assure the fans that he's going to be here. He's a Chief for life. A guy that is that great and is proving and saying everything he can in his will to settle everyone down, let them know that he's going to be here, means that he wants to be a part of something special and has been a part of something special and wants to continue that special trend. So I agree with you, man, 100%.
In the draft, I see the Chiefs going more of a defensive style, just for the simple fact that obviously we've seen what Patrick Mahomes can do with not that great of a talent around him. Obviously, losing the best, probably one of the best receivers, top 3 receivers in the league. We all thought it was a huge loss, but Patrick Mahomes made it seem like it was nothing. It was just another receiver pretty much that he lost. So I do think that the Chiefs are going to their main focus, I think, this draft is to make that defense better. Obviously, with big losses in the defense with Frank Clark leaving and obviously your safety and Juan Thornhill leaving. So you gotta add depth to your defense, because as it was last year, we really didn't have any real depth into our defense. Once our backups came in, you could see how bad, atrocious the depth was. So I think that's their main focus this year is to hopefully make that defense, that depth, a lot better than what it was in the past year. Obviously, it was still a good defense, but I think adding depth it won't hurt. And I think the Chiefs, offensive wise, I think they're done making moves in the wide receiver room. I could probably see maybe a draft pick going into the wide receiver, but probably not.
So
maybe
the Justin Watson move was kind of it.
I think that sealed it for the Chiefs. I think they are firm believers of Kadarius Toney being that true number one receiver. I think them believing in Sky Moore and what he showed in the Super Bowl, them having faith in MVS and kind of replicating some of the games last year. Obviously, you don't need him to be a flash every single week. So if he can do that every 2-3 weeks and have one of those games, I think that's what they're relying on. Maybe adding a veteran wide receiver, maybe a cheap wide receiver. But other than that, I do think that the wide receiver room is closed. They might bring offensive tackles, veteran offensive tackles, maybe not in the draft. So yeah, I do think in this draft, their main focus is going to be defensive players throughout the entire defensive side, not just one specific spot. But yeah, and like I said, Patrick Mahomes doesn't need much to prove that he's a very capable quarterback to win a Super Bowl. So I think him with the receiving core that he has, I think he can make something happen. And obviously, we saw it last year. Juju, I mean, he's a great receiver, but he really didn't put the numbers we were expecting. Obviously, he wasn't healthy not a lot, but he was in a couple games, missed a couple games, concussion. So Patrick Mahomes still made it happen, you know what I mean? So I think when you have a quarterback like that, I think it helps Brett Veach put his attention other places other than wide receiver, because I think Brett Veach believes in Patrick Mahomes, believes in what he can do in that offensive on the offensive side. So it helps a little bit of that pressure, and it helps Veach focus on that defense and trying to make a top 10, top 5 defense. And like you said, it's a Patriot-esque. It really is. Yeah. And I'll take what I can get. You know what I mean? Yeah. If it's working, sign me the fuck up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll take a top 5 defense, top 10 defense. Patrick Mahomes is gonna do his thing. Yeah. Give me another 2-3 Super Bowls. I don't give a fuck.
I think what we're all saying, and I don't want to speak for you guys, but if you want to confirm this, I think we're all saying that obviously it is ideal to have awesome weapons on the offensive side to make Patrick Mahomes' job easier. Like, we all would have loved that Tyreek Hill would have been here last season.
Yeah.
But getting those 5 picks is what helped the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, because we also remember, if we had our choices here, do you want more of a 2018 style Chiefs or do you want more of a 2022 style Chiefs? We all would pick 2022 because we saw in the AFC Championship they could not stop Tom Brady doing these simple screen routes to literally lacrosse players. Like that's the difference between losing the AFC Championship, winning the Super Bowl. So I think we all agree here. But also something we got to think about here, guys, because Eddie mentioned something right there about not just in the front of the defense, but like all across. Think about it like this too, guys. There are a couple guys that are coming up on contracts very soon. For instance, L'Jarius Sneed's entering his final season.
Yeah.
Willie Gay. Like, what are the Chiefs going to do here? I even proposed the question about, do the Chiefs entertain a trade for Willie Gay for like a 3rd-round pick this year? Because, and I know that made a lot of Chiefs fans upset, but really think about the big picture here. He's awesome. We love Willie Gay. I want to see him here. But do the Chiefs see him as a long-term fit? Because if you look at the offseason so far, they've been adding talent to that same position at a cheap veteran area. Drew Tranquil, would it shock you if they drafted another linebacker in the mid-rounds? Not at all for me. Yeah. And so that's an entertaining thought. You get a comp pick, things like that, like 3rd-round pick out of Willie Gay with a year left on his deal. L'Jarius Sneed, do you trade him? If not, you might have to draft a cornerback to replace him if you're not going to extend him after the season.
Well, that too, and if L'Jarius Sneed, I know we all recently heard the Buda Baker noise about him possibly winning. I know they're 2 different positions. Granted, Sneed can't play that safety. He is a hybrid player.
He was drafted as a safety.
Is there a chance where we can maybe throw a little bait with a L'Jarius Sneed and a pick trade for DeAndre Hopkins, something like that? I
wouldn't do that.
Granted, DeAndre Hopkins might straight up get,
but that's because I would draft a corner.
Sneed and a pick? No, you're insane.
Well, that's
like a 5th. I would do it.
I wouldn't.
The thing about it is that there would have to be some contractual alignments. They would have to be like, all right, but you guys are going to eat all the money of DeAndre Hopkins. If you guys, I think we'd all sign up on that. Because, if they're like, you guys take the majority of that money, and we get DeAndre Hopkins, I'm making that trade because you can replace a L'Jarius Sneed.
And I think the Cardinals will be all over that because I know the more we're edging closer to the draft, the more we're edging closer to this season. There's a possibility he gets straight up cut, and they lose. And
the Cardinals they're going to trade out of that 3rd pick.
Right. They're
going to get even if the Colts just move down 1 pick from 4 to 3, they're going to get 3 or 4 picks out of that.
Yeah.
So the Cardinals can end up getting 13, 14 picks in this draft with a new head coach, with Kyler Murray coming back from his injury. You can rehaul your entire roster through the draft. So the Cardinals have an opportunity here, just from your theory alone, that can make that possible.
Yeah.
The point I'm trying to make is the Chiefs clearly see the big vision here, the long vision, the big picture. So I think that with these guys that are coming up on their contractual deals, if we don't have any sense or any inkling that the Chiefs are looking at these guys as long-term answers and they're not going to pay these guys, then we have to start entertaining trades. This is the reason I brought up L'Jarius Sneed about a month ago about trading him. This is why I'm now bringing up Willie Gay. Yeah. From an idealistic standpoint, yeah, you want to have these guys on the team because you know what they are. But if the Chiefs are a team that are very much invested in rehauling their entire roster on an annual basis through the draft with all these 10, 12, 13 picks, these are the kinds of guys you trade then. These are the kinds of guys you replace with cheaper guys on rookie deals for the next 4 years. Because you can... Look, I have this much faith in Brett Veach. I think Brett Veach is better at his job than Willie Gay is. And that's not a diss on Willie Gay. I think Willie Gay is really good.
Yeah.
I think L'Jarius Sneed's really awesome.
Yeah.
But I have more faith that Brett Veach could replace those guys than the Chiefs forcing themselves into convincing themselves they have to pay those guys because they can't replace them. I think that Brett Veach could replace Willie Gay in this draft. Yeah. Maybe not as good, but if you have Drew Tranquill there, if you have Leo Chenal in year 2, you don't have to have this pressure of, we have to replicate Willie Gay through the draft. Yeah. And hell, you might actually get better. You might get a guy that's a little bit more available, because as we know, for the first 2 years of Willie Gay's career, he wasn't available all the time. He missed time. Yeah. And then he got suspended and things all that. Maybe you find a guy that's just better.
Well, we do know the Chiefs' track record with players doing numbskull type deals off the field. If any one little other slip up, and maybe that one was the only one that they needed to maybe not be a long-term commitment to him, that's a possibility too. Which I love Willie Gay, but he is a replaceable guy, and especially if Drew Tranquill, who is not that much older than Willie Gay, can come in and maybe we can extend him if he plays really well as a rotational guy.
Yeah, if Tranquill comes in and does what he did in San Diego, and just kind of brings that same energy. Dude, he's been a great. Yeah. I was reading Chargers Twitter when obviously the Chiefs picked him up on a very, very cheap deal. They were pretty upset. They were like, "How is our leading tackler?"
That's when you know he's good.
Yeah,
when they're mad.
How are we gonna let him go, especially to another AFC West opponent? And how come we couldn't pay that to keep him here? It shows you what kind of trouble the Chargers are running into, especially trying to get Justin Herbert pay, and obviously they're going to have to take some sacrifices, and Tranquill, I think it was one of those, and I think it was very upset for the Chargers fans to kind of see that. So I'm hoping him to coming here into Kansas City and kind of do the same thing that he was doing with San Diego, LA, and doing that same bring that same energy, leading the team in tackles, obviously getting a few sacks here and there, helping this defense obviously become a top 10, top 5, and I do think he's a key player in this defense moving forward. I think the Chiefs, with this 1-year rental, are going to see that, you know what, we have to sign him long term, and I think after this next season, we could potentially see a Tranquill long-term
and
deal.
To that point, the best part about this is you're also getting him out of a divisional foe's roster. So you're actually helping yourself, even if he ends up not being all that great in this scheme, which I agree with you. I think he's going to be very, very valuable in this defense. He's going to outperform that contract by week 5.
He's a Spags guy.
Yes. But I do think just from the fact that you're removing him from the Chargers makes it, that, like you said, that much more difficult, and the pressure of them now having to pay Justin Herbert when they've won literally nothing yet. They're going to have to pay him $50 million a year.
If Justin Herbert balls out, wins a playoff game this year, the Chargers are fucked.
But they might have to pay him now. That's the thing. They drafted him in 2020.
I think the Chargers are going to wait one more year to fully pay him. I do think
he's going to rack up, man.
And I think that's a big mistake. I'm with you. I think if the Chargers want to sign Justin Herbert now, today is the day.
Yeah, like yesterday.
Yesterday. Because you cannot have Justin Herbert go out there, win 2 playoff games, maybe go into a AFC championship or a actual divisional round game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
MVP.
Or exactly winning MVP, because that would only
game of importance.
Anything, literally anything.
Or just beat the Jaguars at home. I don't know. You know,
not give them a 27 point lead. Exactly. You know,
win 33. You know, but
yeah,
this only helps the Chiefs defense, and I'm here for it.
Right. Absolutely. Now on the offensive side, before we get to our guy Jack Johnson in a little bit, I wanted to give my take on the wide receiver position because of the fact there was news yesterday on Friday that the Chiefs did re-sign Justin Watson to a 2-year deal worth $3.5 million total with $1.4 million guaranteed. He does have incentives up to $2.5 million, which could get that contract up to $6 million. So this is actually a very interesting contract because that tells me there was a market for Justin Watson. There were teams that wanted him. You don't give this guy a multi-year deal. When you brought him initially on a 1-year deal, I think it was worth like $5 million last season in total. You don't up the ante for an additional year and more guaranteed dollars unless there were teams like, hey, look, we're going to take him. The Lions want him. This team want him. Whatever. They wanted. They clearly wanted.
It's kind of like that Shane Buechele like a couple years ago when I think the Cardinals were actually trying to sign him, and the Chiefs were like, "Yeah, we're moving you up to the 63-man roster."
They see the value of this play. He may never see the field, but they trust the kid.
And now Shane Buechele might be the backup of this team.
Right. So now, as it stands, the Chiefs' current wide receiver room is filled with young star potential players in Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore, young solid starter potential in Richie James, late 20s middle tier vets in MVS and now Justin Watson, and low risk, high reward projects like Justin Ross. In my eyes, as it currently stands, because of the fact that I think that Kadarius Toney has wide receiver 1 potential, he hasn't lived up to it yet, so I still think he's a wide receiver 2 until he proves it to me. Yeah. I think right now he's the wide receiver 2. This was controversial to a lot of fans, but I'll explain myself in a second. I think Sky Moore right now is the wide receiver 3 over MVS because he has more upside, and I think the Chiefs are going to give him more opportunities because he didn't get those last season. I think you will take that step above MVS because MVS is naturally a wide receiver 3 or a wide receiver 4 because he's a burner, a guy that's downfield threat. He's not really a possessions guy. I know he stepped up in moments, especially in the big playoff games. I don't think he's that guy. I think Sky Moore's that guy now.
I agree with you that he's the wide receiver 3. I think Sky Moore is a solid wide receiver 2 actually moving forward.
See, that's his potential. I don't think he's there yet.
I think he's going to have a lot of catches this coming season.
And that could be if Eddie's right about where we're going to stand on if we're done at wide receiver until they get like a guy in the middle rounds or something like that, then yes, obviously that's going to be what happens. I still have some ideas. You guys obviously know I'm not going to keep repeating myself, but you guys know what I think is going to happen.
I think a slot is going to be.
Yeah, and I think Justin Watson's that wide receiver 5, and then I think Richie James is wide receiver 6. I know a lot of people are like, well, he had more yards than Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney last season. I get that, but those guys were developing in a scheme they were new to. Richie James was 26, 27 years old last season, and an offense that had literally no wide receivers. Yeah. So Richie James was getting opportunities. Richie James and Justin Watson are not here to be legitimate receiving options. They're going to be guys that fill in like Justin Watson did in special teams, obviously.
Sure. Yeah.
So we're still, in my opinion, and people can disagree, even across 10 feet, not even 10 feet across from me, can disagree, but I still think the Chiefs are waiting on a wide receiver 1.
I agree.
They're still missing that veteran defensive difference maker, and I am in no way shocked or opposed to the Chiefs bringing back Justin Watson. There's nothing negative about it. There's nothing negative about adding veteran depth that understands the offense while also playing a legitimate role in special teams. There's nothing wrong with that. But this won't, in my opinion, this is all coming from you guys, this won't and this can't be the last veteran wide receiver the Chiefs bring in this offseason. Because this group simply isn't proven, and it simply is not good enough in my eyes. We posted a poll yesterday asking fans which Chiefs wide receiver group do they believe is better, either 2022's or the current 2023 group. No, it's not even close. 73% of people voted for 2022's wide receiver group. And here's where the Chiefs' top 4 wide receivers ranked amongst all 14 playoff teams, top 4 wide receivers in 2022. They were 12th in receiving yards, and they were 12th in receiving touchdowns. The only playoff teams with fewer yards and touchdowns from the top 4 wide receivers last season were the Giants and Ravens. Now, I get it. Folks will say, well, Travis Kelce is really wide receiver 1. He takes care of a lot of the targets, receptions, yards, and touchdowns. That's fair. To an extent. Kelce has clearly been Patrick Mahomes' number 1 target since day 1. That's including Tyreek Hill.
Receiving numbers.
And I don't think that'll change this upcoming season. Having said that, are we going to pretend that Juju didn't live up to most of the expectations? He was good. He was very solid, but he had less than 1,000 yards on 101 targets. The only wide receivers in the league last season with over 100 targets but less than 1,000 yards were rookies with bad quarterbacks, wide receiver 2s and 3s with bad quarterbacks, or aging veterans like Adam Thielen. So the Chiefs have essentially, if you look at where the Chiefs are right now, with Juju was none of the above when it comes to what those guys' criteria was. He was an outlier if you really compare him to the rest of the league that had that situation. He did have injury concerns, as Trevor and Eddie addressed, but it's a problem when your best wide receiver has 6 fewer receiving touchdowns than your backup running back, Jerick McKinnon. And ironically, like Juju, McKinnon isn't even on the roster. So the Chiefs have essentially lost 2 of their 3 most productive receiving options. So if we're going to include Kelce in justifying a thin wide receiver room, we need to include the loss of Juju and the potential loss of McKinnon to balance the equation. And the biggest point in all of this is, as I stated at the top of the show today, the Chiefs have to build around their core pieces to extend their prime years. We cannot sit here and assume that a 34-year-old Travis Kelce is going to carry an average at best wide receiver group for the next 17 to 20 games next season. Do we expect Kelce to have a baller season? Of course.
1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns at least.
Fill it in. Yeah, it's almost assumed at this point that we talk about this assumption as he gets older. He is the greatest tight end who has ever lived, and I expect him to play at a decent level for the next 2 to 3 seasons. But the only way that's going to be possible is if the Chiefs get legitimate receiving options around him to take some of the focus off his aging shoulders. The Chiefs do possess young receivers that possess promising talent, but they do not have a single veteran difference maker in that wide receiver room as it currently stands. And expecting some rookie to come in here and light it up this season is simply unfair to said rookie. To expect Kadarius Toney to play 15-plus games next season is simply unfair based upon his first 2 seasons. To expect Sky Moore to become a 1,000-yard receiver in year 2 seems extremely unlikely. To expect 28-year-old MVS to finally put together more than one standout game per season is just not a reality from what we've seen in his career. Justin Watson and Richie James, again, are both 27-year-olds known more for their special teams play, and Justin Ross hasn't played football in 2 years. He's a talented but injury-ridden project. The fact is, the Chiefs' current wide receiver room is worse than it was last season, and it was one of the thinnest groups in the league last year. There is no way in hell this is the final group Brett Veach provides Andy Reid going into week 1. I refuse to believe it. The league continues to improve, and the target on the Chiefs' back has never been bigger. Just because they won a Super Bowl with a limited wide receiving group in 2022 doesn't mean they will be able to do that again in 2023. That's not how the league works. Giving Patrick Mahomes more proven weapons will only better their chances. As much as I believe defense has to be the priority in the draft, I still believe the Chiefs have to continue to look behind their backs and around them for wide receivers that can be and will be cut this offseason to add them to the equation. And you know who I'm talking about. It is very likely
Corey Davis.
it's very likely that we will see DeAndre Hopkins get cut.
Yeah.
And Pete Sweeney from Arrowhead Pride said it himself this week.
Yep.
If y'all don't want to listen to me, that's fine. I know I'm just some dude.
Yeah, disconnected.
But
He knows his shit.
If you want to listen to Arrowhead Pride, who's still the most respected Chiefs content on the planet, Pete Sweeney himself said it, that if and when DeAndre Hopkins gets cut, the Chiefs are at the top of the list of getting him. 100%. We saw our guys, our foundational dudes, Starcade Media, Clint and Noah out there, shout out to them for busting their ass, had multiple conversations with DeAndre Hopkins this week. And he played it coy when Chris Jones talking about he's going to recruit him. They have to, very much balance the attack here because you don't want to get that tampering charge. But we saw DeAndre Hopkins' little smirk and how he tried to dish it off. And according to Clint Switzer, he himself said that after they had their meetings and stuff, they met up with him at it looked like a party of some sorts. DeAndre Hopkins multiple times told them that he would have been upset with Clint if they would not have asked him about the potential of him playing with the Chiefs. He literally said those words. So we know that, and I've told you guys, and I've shown you guys that I've gotten information from people that are very close to this situation that say that DeAndre Hopkins wants to be in Kansas City. So I'm going to stay by that. I know Eddie doesn't believe this is a reality. That's okay. Because the trade aspect of it probably isn't a reality at this point. Because the Chiefs probably aren't trying to take on $19 million this year. They can make it work. There are moves they can make to make that work. But if they know they don't have to trade for him, and then he can get cut, and then they look at it and go, all right, D-Hop, do you want to win a Super Bowl, yes or no? If that is your goal, Not to go out there and break the bank like OBJ just did, which congratulations to OBJ. But if that's not your goal, because you don't have what OBJ currently has, which is a ring, then you're going to have to be realistic with us and meet us halfway on a contract. Do I think the Chiefs can give DeAndre Hopkins a contract with incentives up to 10 to 12 million? Hell, absolutely. That could work. They can give him a base salary of 8 to 10 and then incentives that go right below what OBJ has in guaranteed dollars. But OBJ's on a different trajectory than D-Hop because he, like I said, already got what D-Hop doesn't have, and D-Hop has what OBJ has, which is over $100 million in his career. Mm-hmm. So I think these guys are going separate ways, which is why the Chiefs didn't ultimately go and get OBJ, because he was looking for the money. He was looking for the bag. He went with a team that was willing to pay him guaranteed dollars. If D-Hop's mentality is, look, I'm in my 30s now, I'm still very, very, very good, and I can contribute to a Super Bowl winning team, Kansas City is the number one place for him to do so. Let me give me your reactions to that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as to the DeAndre Hopkins thing, I mean, dude,
and also the Justin Watson, because Eddie thinks that because now that Justin Watson's here, the Chiefs will not be adding anybody else, which is fair, and a lot of people share that sentiment. Yeah, but do you agree with that?
Just because the room is full doesn't mean bodies are going to fall off. Doesn't mean we don't know. There's always going to be movement.
Because Richie James might not even make this team.
Right.
Like, Justin Ross may not make this team.
Justin Ross is likely not to make the team.
Right.
If we're all being
He'll make
honest
the practice
with ourselves,
squad probably.
Sorry,
yes.
Shane. If we're all being honest with ourselves, he's likely to maybe make the practice squad. That's about it as far as expectations go. So I think there's going to be and if DeAndre Hopkins gets cut and says, I want to be a Chief, you think they're not going to make room for that guy? You're out of your mind. They're going to make room for that guy. So as far as DeAndre Hopkins goes, it's still a no-brainer to me. I mean, if you don't want him, there's something wrong with you. If you don't literally want him on your team, if he gets cut, that makes no sense. If he's cut and he wants to be a Chief, bring him here.
Right.
That makes all the sense in the world, and it's the best fit for him in both sides. So that's easy for me. That's a layup. But I do have a question for you as far as the Justin Watson move. Seeing that the contracts are damn near identical between him and McCole Hardman, does it seem to you that the Chiefs favored him over McCole Hardman? Because the production that McCole obviously brought was without question higher than what Justin Watson. Are they thinking that maybe if Justin Watson gets more snaps, more opportunities, he could be just as productive or more productive in a different way? Seeing that he is a better route runner, he seems to have the trust of Patrick Mahomes downfield, and McCole, for whatever reason, it was hard for him throughout his whole career here to develop that good downfield connection with Pat. Whether it was on Pat's fault, the timing was off, Pat misses him downfield, the route was ran weird. Who knows what the exact details were for any one of those blunders. But Justin Watson, on the other hand, has had a great connection with Pat, seems to have a good pace with Pat on Pat's throws, and they have a good connection downfield, and that's proven already in big moments. So do you think that the Chiefs in some way favored Justin Watson over McCole Hardman anyway?
No, I don't. I actually think the Chiefs did offer McCole a contract. For the record, I had been under that information that they did offer him a contract. The problem is I think McCole was betting on himself to get a better contract, and that didn't end up happening. We remember even in the NBA, Dennis Schroeder passed down, it was a $64 million, $84 million deal from the Lakers, bet on himself and ended up getting like a $6 million one-year deal.
Sure.
I think that's what happened. I think the Chiefs wanted to keep McCole Hardman. I don't think they valued him over Justin Watson. Otherwise, they would have signed Justin Watson before McCole Hardman
so you think
departed.
it's more McCole?
I think it was
betting on
more McCole. I think his
going-
agent, him, bet on himself, and then he ended up going somewhere else. That's what I think happened. And we can dive into that in a second. But we have a very special guest, our first guest in months, in fact. He is a guy that I have a lot of respect for. I think he is the most underrated radio host in Kansas City, from Sports Radio, 810 Sports Radio, WHB. This is a guy that, if you're not already following on Twitter, if you're not following his work, you need to change that while we're conversing with him, because this is a dude, like I said, that has the knowledge. Let's give it up for the one, the only, Jack Johnson!
What's going on, man?
I appreciate you guys. That's quite the introduction, Lance, so I appreciate it.
Only the best for the best. You know what I mean, Jack? That's how we do things around here, brother. It's great to have you on for the first time. I owe you a lot, man, because you've had me on your show several times. We've had nothing but fun every time I'm in studio with, man. And we've been talking about this, but it's finally happened today, and I'm glad you're with us, man. How are things going with you?
Great, man. I mean, this is no better time, I would say, in the offseason to lead up the NFL draft, of course, being in Kansas City. Right now with your Chiefs kind of having the flexibility here of what you want to do, right? Do you want to stay at 31? Do you want to trade up? A lot of needs you can have there. The tackle position, wide receiver. I think you want to go pretty much any spot with a tight end, wide receiver, tackle, edge rusher. I would go any other position than linebacker, right? You don't want to go linebacker, running back in the first round. But, man, I think it's just the possibilities you have there, man. There's just so many things you can go with. That 31st pick, there's a lot of guys that I love. I'm sure we'll get into that here shortly. But that's the beauty of it, man, in the offseason. Alongside the free agency, when free agency gets buzzing, gets going around, nothing better than the NFL draft, man. I mean, I've been reading mocks every single day, trying to familiarize myself with the players. And I think when you get kind of in that 25 to 31 range, you're kind of narrowing down just exactly who you think is going to be available for Kansas City at pick 31.
Well, I know the question's always going to be, what's the mentality of the team? Are they going to go for the best player available? They're going to go for position of need. When it comes to Brett Veach, I've always looked at it as he looks at, okay, the value of this position is what we see at this pick, and we'll be willing to double down on a position if it makes sense to us, because we want to make sure that we're making the best roster in totality, a very balanced roster. But as I was telling the guys at the beginning of the show, 9 of the last 16 draft picks for the Chiefs have been on the defensive side. I was talking with Tamba Hali earlier this last week, and I talked about, in order for the Chiefs to become that next Patriots type of dynasty, they're going to have to continue to stockpile defensive talent, especially if and when they give this extension to Chris Jones. They're going to have to stretch out his prime years as much as possible, which means they cannot rely on him to carry a bunch of guys in the front 7. And they've already loaded up at linebacker. You have Willie Gay, you have Leo Chenal, you have Nick Bolton, and you have Drew Tranquill. These guys are loaded, so build up that front defense as much as possible. As I stand, we have our prediction show next week, but as it stands for me, if the Chiefs want to win another Super Bowl in 2023, they're going to have to stockpile defense. So, Jack, I don't know if you have your mocks available, if you already have your predictions set. I know we still have about like 10 to 12 days before the draft, but do you agree with that? Because I had Tom Bahali literally agree verbatim with what I said, and he said that if that's how the Chiefs do it, by building their roster for the next 3 to 5 years, the Chiefs can win 5+ Super Bowls in the Mahomes era. Do you see it the same way?
I think when you look at this defense, it's so young right now. And also, I love the pickups they had in the offseason. You talk about Tranquill, Omenihu. I mean, I think you already got so much deeper at 2 positions that I think at times we saw a lack of depth. When you look at the linebacking core, you kind of pencil in a guy like Tranquill where you're still working Leo Chenal into the rotation. You had Darius Harris out there a couple times last year that you get picked on in coverage. The Chiefs went on and addressed the need where you get a coverage linebacker like Tranquill, and then you replace Frank Clark with Charles Omenihu. But at the same time, when you look at the defense, it's all about depth, man. Guys are going to get banged up. Guys are going to get hurt, and you want to have certain guys that fit certain packages. So I would not have any issue whatsoever if they went defense in the first round. I know everybody's clamoring. Edge rusher Felix Enrique-Uzama is a guy I really, really like, local ties here in Kansas City. But again, I think the sexy pick everybody's going to want to go with is wide receiver because, even with the signing of Richie James, even with the signing of Justin Watson, there's still this need that you need a top wide receiver. And can you find that in the first round? Because we've seen in the Andy Reid era, they don't always just give that first-round pick immediate snaps from week 1, week 2, and week 3. It takes a little bit of time to work them in there. We saw Sky Moore last year. I think through training camp up in St. Joe, you thought, man, this could be a guy that could be a number 2, number 3. But it took him some time to get going. So when you look at that first pick, the 31st pick, I think I'd be more inclined to go defense there because you kind of can rotate them into that spot and get them the snaps as the season progresses because you have Omenihu starting and you have Karlaftis starting opposite of him. You can also bump Chris Jones outside. But if you can get that talent to be the depth spot at the edge position, now you're talking about a group that is a lot younger, more physical, hopefully more durable because we saw sometimes with Frank Clark in the last couple of years, the illness got to him, couldn't be there, couldn't be available for all 17 games. And if you have that young depth and have guys that have athleticism, length, the ability to kind of bull rush just one-on-one, that's what I think Kansas City's trying to harness in on because if you have that first spot, I know tackle's going to be another spot they could look at, wide receiver, but really I like the idea of going defense because when you're going to build this defense, right now it's so young, I think depth is vitally important.
100% agree. We're sitting here talking right now to the host of the night shift of Sports Radio 810 WHB and the shift of Kansas City ESPN. He's also the producer of ESPN Wichita and the contributor of Royals Review. In other words, this man stays very active and very busy, which is why we have him on the show. We respect his opinion. Now, when it comes to, we've agreed and solidified that the defense needs to be a primary focus, especially early in the draft. But there is also a question at right tackle. Quite frankly, Jack, I think there's a question at left tackle. I know a lot of people are big on Jawan Taylor. You and I have had our conversations. We've had our conversations here. I think it's assumed based upon the guaranteed money that Jawan Taylor got from the Chiefs, he will play left tackle, at least for this next season. But There is a question mark at right tackle. Is Lucas Niang going to be the guy? Do the Chiefs believe he'll stay healthy? What about Darian Kennard? Where is he ever going to fit in this equation? The 5th-round pick from last year out of Kentucky. Do the Chiefs take an offensive tackle early in the draft? Like, where do you see the importance lying when it comes to right tackle, when it comes to the offensive line as a whole? Because we know that in the next year or two, the Chiefs are going to have to make some decisions across the board on that offensive line. Where do you see Brett Veach's mindset at the offensive line?
It's such an interesting, problem right now that the Chiefs have at right tackle because you're bringing in a guy, and Lance, you and I talked about this, Jawan Taylor doesn't have a lot of familiarity with left tackle, so that's kind of a project in its own on the left side. Now for right tackle, I feel like in the last couple of years, you'll have a fan base get really excited about one guy to the draft. Lucas Niang, everybody was on Lucas Niang, but injuries were going to be a concern. And then after 1 year, you kind of punt on the idea and go, okay, who's next? Who's the next guy that can fill in there? Then it was Darian Kennard. We all love Darian Kennard. I still love Darian Kennard, but he wasn't there last year. And a lot of fans, you kind of punt on the idea and go, who else can we get here? Who's the next right tackle we can go out in there and get? I think you have two really good in-house options. And Brett Veach is a smart man, right? You don't just draft a guy to draft him and then just stash one in the practice squad forever. I still think this front office looks at Lucas Niang and goes, he can be a guy. We've seen him be the guy, but durability is in question here. Darian Kennard has the athleticism, the flexibility to bump outside, but can he win that battle with Lucas Niang, who has more comfort on the right side at the right tackle position, has played it at the NFL level? Darian Kennard has not. So I think a lot of people are going to go into this draft and say, well, the right tackle solution's in the first round. The right tackle solution's in the second round. Do you want to go that route? Do you want to give it to a rookie? Or do you want to give it to a guy that's been seasoned in the offense a little bit and maybe gamble on the injury concerns? I think if you ask me right now, I'm giving Lucas Niang the spot. I'm giving Lucas Niang the spot going into training camp, into St. Joe, and say, hey, listen, it is your spot, but you got to show us you can be out there for 15, 16 games this season. Hell, it'd be a perfect scenario of 17 games, but I'm not going to ask that of Lucas Niang. Darian Kennard can be that guy, but how about giving him the swing tackle look? He could be a guy that could slide in at right tackle. If Jawan Taylor, God forbid, got banged up, he can slide in there at left tackle. More of a grooming process, and then maybe take a tackle if the board falls correctly in the second round. And then you kind of have three guys to work with there. I'm not so sure the Chiefs find their right tackle of the future in this year's draft or even going into 2023. I don't know if that spot is solidified for the next 4 to 5 years, but I think it can kind of be a placeholder spot. Like we saw with Andrew Wiley, the Chiefs had their problems from time to time because he gave up a lot of pressures, but it was also a comfortable spot. I think you can kind of have that same role this year with the Lucas Niang, and hopefully he's healthy, which maybe after a year of rest, not being out there for full 17 games, maybe it's a good chance he can be. But I think I would gamble on a guy that's done it before rather than going with Darian Kennard in week 1 and rather than going with the rookie in week 1 as well.
The Chiefs currently sit with 10 picks. This is back-to-back years now they've had double-digit picks going into the draft. I imagine that's where they're going to stay going into the draft. But, Jack, I don't think the Chiefs are taking 10 players. I don't think that's going to be a reality. I think 6 to 8 is more of a reality, which means the Chiefs are either going to have to trade up, trade back, do whatever they do. I think that Brett Veach is going to be very active in this draft. I definitely think there's going to be some sizzle also with the fact of being in Kansas City. I think he's going to not want to put on a show, but I do think he's going to want to show the fans, like, hey, look, this is ours. This is a big historic moment in Kansas City. We're going to make some splashes here. We already know where you stand when it comes to where you want to see the Chiefs, go early and often in the draft, but do you anticipate the Chiefs will sit at 31? Do you think they'll trade into the first? Do you think they'll trade out of the first? How do you see it going, Jack?
I think if there was any trade to happen, I'd imagine they would trade up in the draft. Of course, you bring up being Kansas City, you kind of have that firepower. You're coming off a Super Bowl championship. It just really, and this is going to sound cliche or very simple, but it kind of matters on how the board falls here. With Kansas City, they kind of lock in on their guy. They like their guy. And I go back to last year, you get Trent McDuffie. Right? I think Trent McDuffie at the time, still a high prospect, but he was kind of Kansas City's guy. They wanted to go after him, and they didn't want to chance it that he wouldn't be available when they were picking. Of course, they get Trent McDuffie in the first round. They get George Karlaftis. I think if they were to trade up, though, it would be because of a wide receiver. Now, we've seen Quentin Johnston fall in a couple of mock drafts, but he's still the number one prospect at that position. I love Jordan Addison. I love Zay Flowers. I do like Jalen Hyatt. They are just smaller-bodied guys, and maybe that's just kind of the route Kansas City goes with. It's been a long time since we've seen the Chiefs spend a high pick on a big-bodied wide receiver. Like Jonathan Baldwin comes to mind because he was 6'5", 6'6", and we saw how that turned out, unfortunately.
Right.
But for Kansas City, I think they're going to see how those picks probably 12 through 18 go. If you see a lot of wide receivers falling off the board in that range, then maybe you look back and go, I think you could trade up. I think you could make a case for going for a guy like Zay Flowers. If Quentin Johnson goes 15 and, Jordan Addison falls off the board, maybe Jalen Hyatt goes high, and you go, I don't think there's a wide receiver going to be there 31. We got to trade up. We got to package a couple picks because we feel like we need a wide receiver. If it's edge rusher or tackle, I have my doubts. They trade up. I think there will be a guy available for them, especially with the edge rushing group. I think Felix Uzama is going to be there at 31. It kind of comes down to where Brett Veach really wants to go with that. But if the Chiefs are to trade up, I think it would be for a wide receiver because you have so much talent right there. But at the same time, I could be wrong, and he wants to go out in there and get his future tackle. You just asked me about the tackle position. Maybe that boardroom is going, we do find our future right tackle here in this draft, and it's going to take trading up. But I do think if they're going to stay defense, they're going to stay back. I think they'll stay at 31. If they're going offense, wide receiver and tackle, and those guys are flying off the boards picks 10 through 18, then I think you will see a trade up in this 2023 NFL draft.
A couple more questions for our guy Jack Johnson from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We appreciate his time here very much so because, like I said, he's a very busy guy. But I want to lean more towards the veteran side of things when it comes to re-signing players or going out and getting guys. First and foremost, there's a question here about a guy that's been a big-time fan favorite over the last couple of seasons and whether he'll return. We know that Isaiah Pacheco is the running back one. He's earned that job. He's taken a grown man's job, as he said, before the season began last year, and the Chiefs got him in the 7th round as an absolute home run at the running back position. And we know that Andy Reid's offense is primarily air raid. He loves to run his offense through the pass game, which is fine when you have Patrick Mahomes especially. But we do know that the running back position has been a pivotal key position, especially in big games in the playoffs for the Chiefs. Damian Williams putting it on ice in the Super Bowl 54. McKinnon sliding at the end of the game in Super Bowl 57. Speaking of McKinnon, he's currently a free agent. We've seen some vague, cryptic tweets from over the last couple of weeks. Could mean nothing, could mean everything. I don't know. All I do know is that he's a fan favorite, and for the right reasons. This guy has been absolutely productive, had more receiving touchdowns last season than Offensive Player of the Year Justin freaking Jefferson. He's 31 years old, he's undersized, he's had a history of injury problems, so I'd understand if the Chiefs moved off. But that means they have to have a contingency plan. I think it's the best scenario is you have Isaiah Pacheco and you have a veteran running back behind him. I think Jerick McKinnon's got plenty left in the tank and could very well be a guy that he's been for the last 2 years for the Chiefs. But what do you think is going to happen? I mean, I know that we shouldn't freak out because the Chiefs haven't signed him yet because obviously he's not a guy that's going to want to sign right now. He's probably going to wait and chill, and then during training camp comes in. He's a veteran. But what do you think, Jack? Where we sit right now in April, in the middle of April, do you think Jerick McKinnon is a Chief this next season?
I think he will be. I think they're kind of just testing how the market goes. It's a good thing that at least for Kansas City, there hasn't been a ton of interest on the surface, or at least public knowledge yet, that Jerick McKinnon is being sought after by a lot of teams out there. I kind of see the Chiefs playing this in the way they also played, going back to Charkandrick West, to Spencer Ware, to Darrell Williams, to Damian Williams. They just kind of see how the board falls in free agency. I know I should say that more so for the draft, but in free agency, when you see a guy that you like a lot, but Brett Veach is smart. We all know Brett Veach is smart. And when he sees a guy that could pencil in this offense, it's the comfortable decision to go, we know what he brings you. He is on the wrong side of 30, but his pass blocking is still great. He's great in the receiving game. He's great in the screen game. And he was also very effective just in the postseason to kind of pair nicely with Isaiah Pacheco. But if Brett Veach looks at Jerick McKinnon and goes, he is on the wrong side of 30, maybe he's asking for a little bit more than we are willing to give him, he's always got a great plan B in place, right? I think when the Chiefs signed Jerick McKinnon at the time, you're going, really? You're going after a guy that's been hurt, been out of the NFL for a couple of years? That's the guy to replace a Darrell Williams, Damian Williams? It works out because that's how the Chiefs have kind of operated their running back room, even in the entire Andy Reid era. I know they kind of had the cheat code at one point, and having Kareem Hunt, he solved everything, but they kind of pieced together their running back room. If they let Jerick McKinnon walk, they're probably finding Jerick McKinnon 2.0, whether it's through free agency, through trade, or through the draft. I mean, I would not be shocked whatsoever if we see the Chiefs take a running back again in rounds 5 to 7, somewhere in that range, because you knew you hit on Isaiah Pacheco. He turned out to be an absolute stud in your last pick that you had. And I think that you can kind of slide him in there for the next couple of years. But you do need that number 2 guy. Running backs get banged up. Injuries can happen there, but you want to find the perfect fit, the guy who can be a Jerick McKinnon that is so effective in the screen game, can be great protection back there for Patrick Mahomes. And we know with Andy Reid, we knew with Eric Bieniemy in the past, and I'm sure we'll know with Matt Nagy, that you can't be on the field if you can't pass block. And Jerick McKinnon gives you that ability, and he does it better than I think anybody else in the running back room. So that to me feels like they are going to go back and get Jerick McKinnon because, number one, nobody on the surface, nobody publicly is going after him right now. I think he'll be available. It probably comes down to how much they're going to be asking for. It'd probably be a 1-year deal. But if you're going to assemble this running back room, I think you'll have Pacheco. I think you'll go out and get Jerick McKinnon back on a 1-year deal. And it wouldn't shock me whatsoever for them to go out and get another running back for that 3rd spot, probably in rounds 5, 6, or 7.
I like it. And Trevor, I know Trevor mentioned that a week ago about how, this could be a potential double dip. Basically, you can draft a guy late, bring back Jerick McKinnon, all of a sudden you have a very deep running back room. All right, Jack, a couple more questions here. If I told you the Chiefs, because I think that they still need to add at least one more veteran to their front 7. I think that you had your Carlos Dunlap last season, a solid guy. You've had your Melvin Ingrams, you've had your Frank Clarks. You've had your guys. One was really expensive. You traded for. Other guys were mercenaries, basically. You got on 1-year deals, very cheap. I think that's more the market where the Chiefs obviously are going to go this offseason. If I told you the Chiefs could get a guy that is 34 years old, which is kind of a red flag, because that's pretty old, but if I told you that since 2019, this guy's only missed 4 games, he has 33 sacks, 9.5 of them last season, had 34 tackles for loss, 64 quarterback hits, 36 hurries, 29 quarterback knockdowns, and 102 pressures. If I told you the Chiefs can get that guy for a 1-year, less than $5 million deal, that sounds pretty good, right?
Absolutely. I mean, where do you sign up for that?
Yeah, well, the guy's name's Justin Houston. So, I know there's bad blood. I know that there's rumors about, him and the Chiefs didn't end very well, whatever the reasons were. For me, this is good business. You have a full circle situation here. You drafted this guy. He had a troubled past, quote unquote. You got him in the 3rd round. He was a 1st-round talent. This guy was one of the greatest pass rushers in Chiefs history. This dude's like Hall of Fame player. And now he has an opportunity to finally win something with the team that brought him into the NFL. I think this makes all the sense in the world, Jack. What are your thoughts?
I'd be jumping for joy if you get a guy like Justin Houston, because I'm all about loading up your edge rushing group with a lot of depth. I don't want to see the drop off there where you can't really rely on your number 2 or number 3 option in the depth chart. You've got to find somebody out there that can be productive. And even though age could be a concern at 34 years old, Justin Houston has shown that he is just fine, well into his 30s here. So it comes down to, what's Justin Houston's priority, right? I don't know the man personally, but he could look at Kansas City and say, I'm never going back there. The way they wronged me, I'm never going to sign a deal. I don't care how much money they offer me. Or when he's getting into his age 34, 35 season, he goes, time's running out for me to get a Super Bowl ring. I probably could go back and give myself a good chance in Kansas City. And I know I'm going to get a good amount of snaps because the guys right now starting in Kansas City are young. George Karlaftis is a 2nd-year player. Charles Omenihu is a guy that was working into the rotation with San Francisco, then exploded onto the scene. But you don't really have that Carlos Dunlap, as you pointed out, Lance. You don't have that Frank Clark. You don't have that Melvin Ingram. Justin Houston would be a perfect fit, but it's only going to come down to where his priorities are. His bad blood, that bad blood may stay forever, and he never wants to come back here because he kind of wants to shove it to Kansas City and say, you didn't want me then, I'm not going to give you the benefit of playing for you now. Or he could say, I'm not getting any younger, and I do want a Super Bowl ring. And right now in the AFC, the best chance to go about it and still get meaningful snaps would be in Kansas City.
One final question for you here, Jack Johnson. And it's the question, look, anybody that knows me on Twitter, everybody that sees my posts, they know what I've been talking about for the last forever. And my guy Eddie probably wants to choke me from across the table. But you know what? I don't give a damn because I have to make a stance here. I have all 10 toes down. Bass in my voice, like our guy Chris Broussard says on First Things First. I'm standing firm on this, Jack, and I know you and I have talked about this, but I want to get you officially on the record, the spoken record here. When in fact, the Cardinals ultimately cut DeAndre Hopkins, he needs to be a Chief. I don't think there's any question about it. I love the potential of Kadarius Toney. I think Sky Moore can be special. I think the Chiefs have good rotational pieces at wide receiver right now. They do not, as it currently stands, have that difference-making veteran player, let alone that veteran wide receiver one. I know that Travis Kelce's still great. I know he's still going to probably have a great season or a couple more great seasons, but he's getting older. And you can't rely on him to carry a bunch of guys. Like we talked about Chris Jones on the defensive side. You have to give Travis Kelce something to extend his career as well. That has to happen. I think DeAndre Hopkins is the perfect piece. I think he's the kind of guy, because him and OBJ are gone in different directions. OBJ has already won a ring. That's why he went and got $15 million guaranteed from the Baltimore Ravens, even without the assurances of Lamar Jackson returning. D-Hop's made $111 million in his career, but has won nothing. And this is his opportunity in Kansas City. And there's just so much smoke around this. Our guys at Starcade Media said this, or had an interview with him multiple times just yesterday, and he told him he would have been mad if they didn't ask him about the potential of him coming to the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't think a trade is possible at this point because the market really isn't there for him. No one wants to take on that money. I get that. But I think if and when that does happen, where he is cut and the Cardinals part ways with him, the Chiefs need to be knocking on that door immediately and going and get DeAndre Hopkins for a reasonable, potentially team-friendly deal. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the common misperception that Chiefs fans have, and maybe it's a good thing, obviously you win the Super Bowl, but when they won the Super Bowl with these pieces, I think a lot of fans go, well, it doesn't matter what you give Patrick Mahomes. It can be anybody. You know, you're going to go back and kind of resemble the New England Patriots, where Tom Brady basically just had a bunch of guys. You know, Chris Hogan was a lacrosse player in college, and they're winning Super Bowls with guys like that. But if you're in Kansas City, it's fine not to go out there and break bank for a number one or number two, but you can't get complacent. You can't look at last year and go, well, we can win with that exact group. I mean, we're forgetting here that Juju Smith-Schuster was basically a 1,000-yard receiver last year. Like, he really was a number one for this team. You don't have that. You can have hopes for guys like Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore, but I think we're underselling just how good Juju Smith-Schuster was for Kansas City. And if you want to go into this season without that true number one, we all know DeAndre Hopkins would be a true number one in Kansas City, you got to be very confident that guys like Kadarius Toney can stay healthy all year long. Guys like Sky Moore can make that boost to the next level, and then you don't have to worry about it. But right now, I do have my concerns just because I haven't seen it yet. But if DeAndre Hopkins is available and available for the right price, it's really a no-brainer for Kansas City. Now, I think the question is of what are you going to do with that first-round pick? Or do you feel like your first-round pick is a guy that can be a number two immediately off the bat? Or is he going to be a guy that you slowly work into the group? If that's the case, then really your number one is Valdez-Scantling. Your number one could be Kadarius Toney. And we haven't seen them be that just to this point in their career. So this point about complacency, just because the Chiefs did it last year, that's a different team. That had Juju Smith-Schuster. It was a different group. It's going to be a new group this year. You can't always be complacent and say it doesn't matter who you have at the wide receiver group as long as you have Patrick Mahomes. That's true in a sense, but I think Brett Veach knows that it's also about keeping your quarterback happy. You want to give him top weapons, and no doubt in my mind, DeAndre Hopkins would be that true number one and reignite kind of that wide receiver group. It's a good wide receiver group, but it's kind of balanced with a lot of similar guys. DeAndre Hopkins is a number one no matter where you pencil him into any single NFL roster. So if he's there and he's there for the right price, I think it should be a no-brainer for Brett Veach and company.
See, I don't even have to say anything. You know, people don't have to listen to me. I'm just some idiot. Jack Johnson's a dude. He knows what he's talking about. So if you don't want to listen to me, put me on mute. But listen to Jack. The man knows what he's talking about, people. He just agreed with me. So suck it. This is what's going to happen, okay? This is, like I said, all the time, and I've been hearing people say it as well, and I agree with it, and I said at the top of the show, you pay for offense, you draft for defense, especially when you're a Super Bowl contender. You're 100% right on this, Jack, because you said what I've been saying, so obviously you're right. That is the host of the night shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB, and the shift on Kansas City ESPN, producer of ESPN Wichita, and contributor of Royals Review. But Jack, before you go, let the people know where they can find you on a daily basis, and just let them know, man, what you're all about, what you do, man, because like I said, I think you're the most underrated radio host in Kansas City, and I love what you do, man. I'm a big fan of what you do, and we appreciate your time, man. But go ahead, give the people what they want.
Hey, first things first, I appreciate you guys having me on here. Always love to be here and talking about NFL in the offseason and in the upcoming draft, so really appreciate you guys giving me the time to come on here and talk about it. If you want to follow me on Twitter, a little bit of an obscure Twitter name. I promise it was a default when I first made it back then. But you can follow me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15 if you want to see my takes on Royals, on Chiefs and stuff like that. Obviously, baseball season, so I'll be pretty heavy in baseball. And on draft night, I'll definitely be tweeting away, giving as much content as I can. As for radio spots, you can obviously listen to me, as you pointed out, in the night shift. Usually every Wednesday from 7 to 10 over there on Sports Radio 810. But if you want to hear me on a daily basis, I'm on 1510 ESPN Kansas City from 10 to 11 Monday through Friday. And if you're in the Wichita area, you're listening down there, I'm on there producing for both the Shane Dennis Show and the Pulse and Patch Drop from 12 to 4. So kind of bounce around a little bit, do some writing work over there at Royals Review on SB Nation. So just try to stay local, because hard not to love the local teams here in Kansas City.
That's our guy, Jack Johnson. Jack, we greatly appreciate you, brother. We'll have you back for sure before the season begins. Take care of yourself, man. We'll be in touch soon, okay?
Hey, thanks so much, guys.
All right, brother. That's our guy, Jack Johnson, man. We greatly appreciate him, man. He always brings it. And if you guys haven't tuned into his show, he always leads a great cast, too. Like, all the producers he's had. So our personal friend, Blake Sneeders, is one of his producers a long time. I met his other guy this few weeks back. They have a great crew up there, man, at 810. I highly recommend you guys give him a listen, because what he did today doesn't even do it service. We appreciate his time, but his shows are awesome, and we greatly appreciate his time today, man. And I hope you guys give him a follow on Twitter, because he's a great guy. And he talks Royals, and I know there's a lot of people out here that want to talk Royals, even though that team absolutely sucks ass this year, as expected. But nevertheless, I know there's a lot of you guys out there that want to listen. If you're going to listen to anybody have to talk painfully through this season, it's Jack Johnson for sure. Let's get to the Eddie Hour. God, I haven't said that forever. I dusted off that words. Like, all right, here we have the Eddie Hour. We have it back for the first time, what seems like a fucking month. I think it has been a month.
I think it's been a month.
It's back. We need to talk some stuff across the landscape of sports. We've been talking nonstop Chiefs. I know that's what you guys like, but we also know there's a ton of you guys out there that are NBA, MMA, any type of other sports we want to talk about. Even the NFL, we can stick with that. I don't know what's happening. I have no idea what Eddie's going to ask. Let's get it going. What's in the Eddie Hour?
Let's start with the NBA. I mean, obviously, NBA playoffs are about to kick off here, this weekend? I think they're today, right?
Today. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to ask about who your dark horse is, who your two favorites to make out of each conference, obviously. But let's start with who is your MVP. We saw the list come out, I think, yesterday or the day before. It was down to Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic. And I want to ask you who your MVP is and why.
As crazy as this sounds, because all three of those guys are very deserving, I think it's Joel Embiid without question. This season is the greatest season a big man has had since Prime Shaq. Legitimately. We haven't seen anything like that in this generation of basketball. Since LeBron James has been in the league, we've not seen anything like this from a big man. Averaging mid-30s, shooting the way he does efficiently, passing the way he does, rebounding, defending the way he does. Joel Embiid is everything you could ever want in an NBA at an all-time level at center. He is. I mean, to be able to play that level in today's NBA as a center is literally what Shaq or Hakeem Olajuwon would have been if they played in today's NBA. He makes it look easy. But the scariest thing about Joel Embiid is the man is deadly from three. He can knock down three-pointers. He shoots free throws well.
Euro steps, fadeaways.
Yes, yeah. And he's a good passer and highly intelligent player. Like a lot of tall players, centers and stuff, they don't usually, I hate to say it like this because it almost sound like they're dumb, but there's a reason why a lot of guards become head coaches. Not a lot of tall men, not a lot of centers or coaches. Joel Embiid's the kind of guy that has that type of intelligence. I know he's a goofball and he's kind of aloof at times. This man knows basketball.
He leans into that, though.
It's 100%, in my opinion, without question, Joel Embiid. Jokic, for the first 60 games of the season, was probably going to win it. Started having injury concerns. The Nuggets started to slip a little bit. I think that's what gave Joel Embiid, who quite frankly has been the most consistent, most dominant player of the season, the advantage. So Giannis, we have Giannis fatigue. Every single season, dude's averaging 28, 29, and 14 and 2 or 3 blocks. And it's like, well, it's a great season. This guy's going to win MVP. Giannis should probably win every single year. But if I'm going to vote one for who's going to get it based on narrative and all that, it's Joel Embiid.
I mean, Giannis fatigue. We got Jokic fatigue, too, man. He's on pace to win his third. I think all three of these guys are deserving. I really do. I think if any one of these guys win it, I don't care. I'm not going to be upset about it. I want Joel to win it, though, just because, I'm a KU guy.
Oh, KU bias here.
No, I'll admit it. Everyone's got their biases, whether they want to admit it or not. I have 100% a bias for Joel.
But I think he's deserving of it.
Even though 100%, all these guys are deserving of it. Like I said, if Jokic wins it, it'll be his third straight. If Giannis wins it, it'll be his third overall. But I think this is the year of the Embiid, and I think that this is just I think the Sixers are a really good team. Their game is tipped off. It's in them halfway through the first quarter right now with the Nets, so that should be a fairly entertaining series there. But yeah, I just think that his numbers speak for themselves. You drop Embiid in any era of basketball. For him to dominate the talent of today's game, like you said, Lance, at his position, the way he does it, the craftiness that he has, the guard-esque skill set that he has, his ability to create space like a guard, and then slash into the bucket and being able to facilitate as well. He's a great passer, an underrated passer. Mm-hmm. The guy's a hell of a defender, hell of a rim protector. The guy does everything, man. I mean, if we're all being honest right now, outside of the absolute prowess defensive efforts that Giannis has and the skill set he has on defense, he's not better at Joel Embiid than anything else. He's not.
Yeah.
He's a better defensive player. That's it.
Yeah.
Let's all be real right now. Joel Embiid is far more talented offensively. Everything. Facilitating, shooting, handle, ability to score from every point of the floor consistently. The guy does everything. So, I mean, and he's a great defender. It's not like he's a bad defender. Giannis just happens to be a lot better. He's just maybe the best defender in basketball overall. That's it, though. So, I mean, let's not act like there's a gap between any one of these guys. And then, obviously, Jokic is just who he is. He's just an uncoordinated blob out there, but just is the most efficient player maybe arguably ever seen. It's unreal what that guy does, and the numbers speak for themselves as well. So all three of these guys are deserving. I love what all three of these guys do to the game, and their impact on the game is unique in its own way for all three of these guys. And it's cool to see the evolution of the big, that the top three candidates for the MVP are the bigs. And that's funny. That's what happened was there was an era of the past 10, 12, 15 years where it was like wing players that were all the top candidates for, the LeBrons, the Kawhis, the KDs. Those guys dominated the MVP race for so long. I mean, obviously Russ as well. I'm not going to leave him out. But he's like a guard that plays a wing a lot as well as bring the ball up at point guard. But it's kind of evolved into like this versatile big race now. How which way they're dominating the game and who deserves it. How good is their team? Are they leading their team to the best record, or how are they going to do in the playoffs, and what their projection is, regardless if that impacts the MVP race at all. But I love the attention that the bigs are getting now and how they've evolved, and I think these three guys right here that we're discussing are the key contributors to the evolution of that position. So proud of all these guys, but my pick is Joel Embiid for sure.
All right, let's go with Coach of the Year for the NBA, and I'll give you three finalists on this one as well. Mike Brown from the Kings, Mar Dano from the Thunder, or whatever. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Thunder head coach, or Joe Mazzulla from Boston Celtics.
This is the easiest one. It's Mike Brown.
Fuck yeah, baby.
The Kings haven't made the playoffs in 17 years. It was the longest drought in American sports. And Mike Brown, as crazy as it sounds, was a guy that has been a failed head coach everywhere he's went. He's been a journeyman head coach, essentially.
Been a good assistant head coach.
He's been an insanely good defensive coach, which is ironic because now Mike Brown, the reason why I think he's so successful is having his best season ever as a head coach, and this includes back in his days of Cleveland, is the fact, because no one expected, that's why I say that. Because you have LeBron James, you better win. It's the fact that he was a defensive-minded head coach, and now they have the best offense of all time. This is the most most efficient offense in NBA history. Mike Brown, without question. Look, Trevor was the one that was saying that they'll probably sneak in, get like the 7 or 8 seed in the West this year. No, they got the 3rd seed. And wire to wire were one of the best teams in the NBA, and nobody knew it. They had 2 nationally televised games all season. So it's without question Mike Brown. The Thunder's head coach, I can't pronounce his name either. I've seen it before. I can't pronounce it either. And there's several other coaches that are deserving. The guy from Boston fills in for Udoka last minute. But that team is littered with awesome players. Are deep. You expect the Celtics to be a 50-60 win team, get to the playoffs. No one outside of Trevor Twidwell was expecting the Kings to have a notable season, and they ended up having a great season already. Even if they lose in the first round of the Warriors, who are the defending champions, that's an amazing season. So light the beam, give Mike Brown Coach of the Year.
Yeah, well, between me and the guy that put $10 and now won $100,000+.
Oh, that wasn't you? Shit.
Yeah, I wish, man.
Thought we were going to Cancun this weekend, bro.
Yeah, I should have practiced what I preached. And it's Mike Brown. Going from literally not even making the play-in tournament last year, not even able to have a chance to make the play-in tournament last year, to being this damn near the 2nd seed, only a couple of games away from the Grizzlies from getting that 2nd seed in the West.
They had it for a couple weeks.
Yeah, we held it there for a little bit, but to get the 3rd seed, to win our division, over teams like the Suns and the Clippers and things like that, like it's just. And all the talent that are on those teams as well, and then my suspect attitude towards the getting rid of Tyrese Halliburton, which I loved. I love that guy, still do. He's a baller. He's still balling. He was balling this year, regardless of what the team success was or not this year. And got Sabonis, who I liked as a player a lot, but I mean, he's done nothing but flourish. He's gotten even better since he's been here. And his connection with De'Aaron Fox and then Malik Monk coming off the bench. I can gloat all over these guys. Keegan Murray, absolute stud, one of the best three-point shooters in the league right now as a rookie, set the rookie record. It's Mike Brown, man. He's coached these guys up so well. Keegan Murray started a ton of games this year, and he's played like he's ready. Harrison Barnes has been that great veteran. This has been such a solid team all the way around. There's just the camaraderie between these guys and what Coach Mike Brown is, the culture that he's absolutely changed, the Beam team culture. It's just the aura. This is just different for this team this year, man. And I, as a fan, I've waited for this for so long. Someone to come in and change the culture. We've had just a revolving door of coaches here. Yep. And if anyone needed a culture change and a coaching change and a consistency change, it's been the Sacramento Kings. We've been the worst team in the NBA. We had the worst stretch of drought-wise in NBA history. So if anybody needed that refresher, it's us. It's those fans, those great fans in Northern California. That's all they got. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, it's Mike Brown and what he's done culturally, and for him too personally, not just for this team, but this for his resume. What he's done here to change not only this team's success and the culture here for the fan base, but for his personal bragging rights and what he's done and what he can show he's still capable. He's not an old man. This guy has a long future here, hopefully with Sacramento. For what he's done here, but yeah, for me, it's Mike Brown, man. It's not even close.
That's why Trevor's wearing Kings colors today. Dude out here just telling on himself.
All right. Who is your dark horse from each division here in the playoffs for the NBA? Now, they can be your favorites as well, but who is your dark horse?
This is going to sound crazy, too. I think the dark horse is the Lakers. I think the Lakers, look, and the reason I say that is not because of just LeBron James. It's actually outside of LeBron James. It's because of everything else around him. So AD's healthy for the first time in forever. That's first and foremost. Second of all, since they made that trade since the deadline on February 9th, moving on from Russell Westbrook, the Lakers are 19-8. If you pace that out for a season, they win 57 games, which would have given them the 1 seed in the West. This is a much different team. They didn't play great against the T-Wolves in that play-in game, but in the second half, their defense went on lockdown mode, especially in that fourth quarter and overtime. And that was with LeBron James out there just willing himself over 40 minutes at almost 40 years old. This team is so much better than what they were for the first 50-plus games. They are significantly better now. So that's my dark horse out of the West. I think they could get to the finals. I legitimately do. Will they? We'll find out. When it comes to the Eastern side of things, Trevor and I talked briefly before the show today, and I'm 100% in agreement with him. The Sixers are due. For 2 guys. Well, 3 actually, if you really think about it. So Doc Rivers had success early with the Celtics, but outside of that big 3, they didn't really do a whole bunch. So they had the 1 title in 2008, lost to the Lakers, and then they had a bunch of early exits in the playoffs against LeBron and the Heat. But he hasn't won since at all. So this is a great opportunity for Doc to reestablish himself as one of the best head coaches in basketball. James Harden, horrific in the playoffs. Terribly inefficient in the playoffs. Great opportunity for him to get back in the finals for the first time in 12 years, or almost 12 years. And Joel Embiid. You want to talk about solidifying yourself as the best player in the NBA? Get that monkey off your back. He's never even been to the conference finals. That's very rare for a guy as great as he is to never do. He's 28 years old. Perfect opportunity for him to do so. Will it be tough? Hell yeah. Because you have the Bucks, you got the Celtics, you got some tough teams on that Eastern Conference side of things. Some juggernauts. But I think the Sixers can do it. It would not shock me at all if the Sixers get to the finals. They are that talented, they have that good of a team, and they are that motivated. Those are the 2 teams I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'm leaning all the way in today. I think, and I'm saying this because the lack of respect that still is there for the Kings.
Don't you fucking say it.
It's the Kings.
You have them going deep?
Yes.
Okay.
I've leaned in. It took me. I was hesitant, obviously, because, quite frankly, I'm a Kings fan. I have no faith. This team's just different, man. I think we're here for a reason. And I'll say it now. I think we're going to beat the Warriors in this series. It might go 7 like we discussed off air before the show. And it very well might go 7. Now, quite frankly, I kind of hope it does. I want it to end in Sacramento going 7 games with the Warriors. That would just be a fun series. And that'd be a huge boost for them heading into whoever they play next to know that took the defending champs down in that series in their first playoff series as this with this team. I think it'd be awesome. So I think this team has a chance to make a run, man. I really do. They're here for a reason. This is not a fluky run. This is real. I've watched them all year long. This is a scary, confident team. Like this is not a fluke. These guys are all confident in themselves, and Sabonis brings an X factor to this team that's unique to most. Similar. Now he's not Jokic, but he has a very efficient way about him. The way he approaches the game is similar to Jokic, and he's a very good facilitator. Gets all the tough rebounds, and again he could definitely put up points. And then De'Aaron Fox is one-on-one defensive on the perimeter. That's the way this team can match up with any team. That's what I love, because they have versatile size as well that can come off the bench, really good depth, and they have good guards that can come off the bench as well. I like this team, man. I like how they match up with most of the other teams in the West. We've beaten everybody in the West this year. No one's like swept us at all this year in any matchups in the West. So I know we're capable of beating anybody, and we can score with the best of them. You know what I mean? When it comes to playoffs, you got to score, and you got to hope that your defense can play just good enough. So, and I think this team is good enough. And like I said, I just gloated on Mike Brown's consistency with his head coaching skills this year. So that's my dark horse pick, because a lot of people are picking against the Kings, let alone just this series, but to do anything moving on after that if they do escape this series. But I think they're a very confident bunch, and I'm gonna leave it at that. My team in the East is actually the Cavs, man. The East is really wide open, honestly. I mean, the West is tight too as well, but I think matchup-wise, a lot of these teams match up great with each other, and they all have similar rosters. The Cavs have a roster that's very versatile. They can go big and they can go small, right? They got Evan Mobley, who's a big guy. They also have Jared Allen, who's a big guy, but they're both pretty athletic bigs that can get all of the rebounds. And obviously, you have a true leader in Donovan Mitchell, a guy that has had failures over failures, and on those Jazz teams in the West could never get over the hump. But his numbers are great in the postseason. The guy is incredible. His performances, dude, we've seen so many incredible performances from Donovan Mitchell. He just never had the team, right? He just never did. And this team is good, man. You got Darius Garland, who's another good point guard, a good scorer as well. You got Karis LeVert coming off the bench, sometimes starting, but is a really good sixth man. I believe he's better when he comes off the bench. You got veterans like Ricky Rubio, guys like that. There's I just like this team. I think they're a gritty team. I like the leadership, and I feel like Donovan Mitchell is really going to try to seize the day on the with this team, what they can do here. A lot of people are doubting them as well. So I just have a feeling about them. I think they can have a good series here in this first round against the Knicks. I think it's going to be a really fun series. I like the Knicks team as well as far as just hoops reasons, just for good fun entertainment. I think
led by a good coach.
Team. Yeah. Yep. And they got good players. I mean, shit, Julius Randle's been great this year. A lot of guys have been good in that team. Brunson's been a stud, absolutely. So, yeah, I like them. I like them to make a little run here. I could see them in the Eastern Conference Finals. I really could. I think this is a good team. I do want to see the Sixers go to the finals, though. I really do. I'm with you on that. I think
that's a good call on the Cavs, though.
Yeah, I think this Cavs team is coached well as well, and I think the leadership and the experience of Donovan Mitchell can steer this ship in this good young roster and deep roster to make a nice run. So that's my pick in the East.
Now, who's your favorites?
If you're going chalk, I mean, I picked the Bucks before the season to win the title. I think they're the best team in the NBA. I stick with the Bucks. I think when they're at their best, no one's better than them. So I would say the Bucks for sure. And then on the Western side, if everything goes as planned, it's got to be the Suns. I mean, they're not a deep team by any means, but with a healthy KD and Devin Booker and CP3 and DeAndre Ayton, like that's probably the best starting five in the NBA, if you're being honest, at their best, like when they all play at their best. Kevin Durant's the most unguardable player in the history of the NBA, and he's still very close to the top of his game. Is he the same guy he was 6 years ago with the Warriors? No. But he's still, honestly, the best probably overall scorer in the NBA. So I think that's what matters. I think they play good defense, not great defense, but good defense. I think that can very well be, if we're going chalk, that can very well be the finals we see as a Bucks Suns series. I really do. I'm not expecting it, though, just for the record. I don't think the Suns are going to get out of the West.
I want to see Philly go, I really do, but I still think my favorite to go is Boston.
Oh, okay.
I know the Bucks inched them out in the last few games to take that first seed. I think that's a good thing for the Celtics that they lost the first seed. I just don't any added pressure to them. They've had their moments where they had high expectations.
Is Robert Williams playing?
He's been in and out, but he's active.
Because that could be a massive X factor.
Great rim protector, a good rotational guy. But I know it feels like this has been 3 years running now, where it's like this is their time. Jason Tatum's gonna be, But I mean, I still don't think Jason Tatum's like the guy that's gonna carry a team all the way. He's crumbled in too many big moments already.
He's gonna have to because Jaylen Brown's leaving.
I think he's great, but I think Jalen Daniels is the guy when it comes to like going
Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown. Sorry, Jaylen Brown. It's the guy that's gonna go out there and have the moment. He's been the guy that's carried them offensively a lot of times in a lot of big games as well.
This might be their last chance.
Sure, that's why I think this is very incentivized for them to take advantage of this time. And I think, like I said, the East is so wide open, man. A lot of these teams are similar as far as their skill sets, very similar records. Everyone's within a couple games of each other. This is going to be a tight race, and I love the talent of this roster. This, the addition of Malcolm Brogdon coming in as being that six-man guy. I like that too, defensively and his ability to shoot. They still have their core, the core that's been here and has gotten to big games and just failed when it mattered the most. So I think this is a great chance for them. I like them out of the East. The West is tough for me to pick a favorite. Yeah. There's not really a favorite in the West. You could say Phoenix because of the addition of KD and that big three is great, but they have no one else.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They
have
super
no
light.
one else, man. Yeah. They got rid of all their depth.
But we've seen teams do that before.
Sure.
The Heat back in the early 2010s, they did not have depth.
Sure, but that's when they had young stars, a younger big three.
Yeah, I mean, Devin Booker's 26, 27?
Yeah, we saw the Miami Heat, with not much depth, but this absolute ridiculous amount of top-heavy talent. But that was prime LeBron. That was pretty much still sort of kind of prime D-Wade before his legs gave up. Prime Chris Bosh. It's prime, still prime LeBron and Kevin Love and Kyrie at that time. This is an older KD. This is an old Chris Paul. And Booker's still very much a star.
KD had the most efficient 2-point shooting season ever.
Yeah, that's what he does. He's still going to shoot at a high level.
58%.
But I mean, I'm talking more just his health as well though too. I'm not talking when he's on the floor. KD's going to be KD.
Yeah.
But do we trust him to be healthy? Is it one little tweak? Or was big ass foot stepping over a line? So it's hard for me to pick, man. But if I'm going to pick, I'm gonna say the Suns. I'm gonna say the Suns as my favorite pick because I think if they match up, KD's already a matchup nightmare for any team.
Any team.
Booker on any given night can give you 50.
Right.
You know what I mean? So defending that is very tough. And then you got Chris Paul's genius out there just dishing getting the ball to the player's hands,
hitting people in the nuts, all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, dirty as hell. Always has been.
State Farm commercials.
Yeah. So. If I'm gonna go off this strictly just talent and what I believe these guys can do, I like the Clippers' talent as well, but you never know what rotation you're gonna get. You know who the big three are in Phoenix. Monty Williams is a hell of a coach.
Yep.
Right. So if they can figure out a rotation of guys that can come in and give them any kind of production off the bench, and their big three and their core guys are doing what they need to do, that's a scary team to face in a 7-game series, and I wouldn't want to see them. So I'm gonna go with the Suns.
Nice. All right, let's go to NFL now. Obviously, the biggest news of the past week has been OBJ to the Ravens. I want to get your reactions on that.
Well, from the Ravens' standpoint, I understand why they did it because it's like basically that Hail Mary, ironically, to try to ease the tension with Lamar Jackson. Yeah, at least from a PR standpoint, I think the Ravens have been handling this actually really well. In fact, they've been handling it much better than Lamar Jackson has, just from the premise of this all with not even having an agent. I mean, it's always been a terrible idea unless you're Laramie Tunsil. It's not worked out for you. So Lamar Jackson has really fumbled the bag on this one, and I don't think he's definitely going to get what he wants to get. He's going to have to end up settling, whether it's with the Ravens or some other team. With OBJ, from his perspective, this made all the sense in the world. Because as I said earlier about D-Hop, when it comes to DeAndre Hopkins, money isn't what he's chasing now because he's gotten that. I'm sure he wants more of it, but if legacy is what he's paying attention to, he has to go the opposite direction. OBJ's already established himself as a Super Bowl champion, put himself in prime position to have Hall of Fame considerations and things of that nature if his career continues for the next 3 to 5 years. Yeah. So why not go get the bag? And that's exactly what he did. He said it wasn't for the money. It 100% was, and no one says it's not about the money unless it is about the money. You went and got $15 million guaranteed with incentives that brings it up to $18 million. Nobody else in the NBA, in the NFL was doing that for you, including the Jets, which we all assumed he was going to go to because it made sense from a football standpoint. It doesn't make sense from a football standpoint to go to Baltimore because more than likely Lamar is gone, and even if he's back, do you think that's the perfect marriage? It isn't. It's not. So I'm happy for OBJ. I'm happy for the Ravens because they finally got a wide receiver that's worth a damn. I mean, Rashad Bateman's fine, but he's not a wide receiver one.
He could be great.
He could be, but I'm not banking on it just yet. So I think this is a great signing for OBJ, for his career, for his money, from his monetary standpoint, and for the Ravens. Outside of that, I'm not stoked about this from a football standpoint because I don't think Lamar's going to be their quarterback, and I don't think OBJ is going to be a true difference maker for them because they're not going to have a quarterback justifying this signing from a football standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, if I knew that Lamar was fully committed and back on this team, sure, this would move the needle a little bit for me. That's a great acquisition. That's a championship caliber receiver right there, an all-time talent. Sure, but this is just a good move for a good team, a solid team. I don't think it struck fear into anybody across the league. I mean, especially the AFC. Shit, the AFC is so loaded right now.
Their Super Bowl odds didn't change.
If I'm being honest, the Ravens are the least of our worries.
Their Super Bowl odds did not change.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So it doesn't, for me as a fan, me as a Chiefs fan, a football fan in general, this doesn't really move the needle that much for me. I love OBJ. I would love to see him in red and gold as well. But he made his choice. He got paid, way overpaid in my opinion, for where he's at in his career. And the Ravens obviously had money to spend, and they felt it was necessary to make that move and to try to. I don't know if that's to bait Lamar back. I don't know.
It's only a 1-year deal too.
Yeah, and it's hard to decipher if that's a move to bait Lamar or to bait someone else to come play with OBJ in Baltimore if they know that they're already done with Lamar. Because I think the tension between the two teams is so ridiculous, so thick right now.
Or their future drafted quarterback they might get in a trade.
That's what I'm saying. You have a true number one receiver. That's what I'm saying.
With it, Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman.
Yeah, because everyone's immediately assuming that this is a move to keep Lamar and to reel him back in. Is it, though? We don't really know. It could be for the new guy they draft or a free agent that comes in and maybe, or Huntley. If they bring Huntley back, he'll have a guy to throw to. Right. I don't know, man. It's hard to really understand what's going on with this Ravens team. It feels like it's been tense for some years now. Yeah. And Lamar is owed money, but Lamar has gone at things a lot the wrong way, in very unprofessional way. Untraditional. He wanted to do things his own way, sure, but is it going to work out for him? You're not promised that it's going to work out for you. So, good signing, great player, all-time player. I mean, anywhere he goes, he's going to have an impact, but does it really strike fear in the AFC? It doesn't. No. There's so many other better teams at this point right now and much other better quarterbacks in better situations with better weapons still, better rosters overall still. So, cool move. If you're a Ravens fan, it's just probably a cool hype move for you. I'd be hyped if I got OBJ on my team for sure. I wouldn't be happy about the money, but sure. It's cool, fun football move. That's about it for me, man.
Do you think that Aaron Rodgers to the Jets is still happening, or do you believe in the rumors that the Jets and the Packers haven't talked for like the last couple weeks in a potential trade for Aaron Rodgers? Do you think that that's still happening or not?
This whole situation has been drawn out and drug out simply because of the era we live in. If this was happening 20 years ago, nobody would have a worry about it happening because it is 100% happening. It has to happen. He's guaranteed $99 million for the next 2 years, over the next 2 years. The Packers drafted Jordan Love and traded up for Jordan Love 3 years ago. They have a pressure cooker on them. This is why all the leverage is mostly on the Jets side, in my opinion, because of the fact that the Jets are the ones that hold the draft picks that the Packers desperately want, and the Packers are on a clock with their rookie or their quarterback on a rookie deal, and they want to get rid of Aaron Rodgers' money. They're set. Mark Murphy from the Packers side has already stated this, so they've already outed themselves. Aaron Rodgers has already spoke on the Pat McAfee show. The Jets have already shown interest by flying all the way to Malibu to meet with him with everybody in place. The entire brass that was there. They went and signed Nathaniel Hackett. For what specific reason? They went and got Boyle, their backup quarterback from the Packers, for one specific reason. Like, all this is showing us it's going to happen. What the Packers are trying to do is get the much out of this as possible because they don't want to look bad in front of their owners/fans when they trade the greatest player that's ever played in their franchise's history. So this is something they're trying to be very careful about. It's going to 100% happen. And if you look at it, with all the connections they have between the Jets and the Packers, all these guys have worked together for 30, 40 years. Yeah. Robert Saleh and Matt LaFleur, the coaches for the teams, grew up together, worked together. They know each other very well. Douglas and Mark Murphy from both sides known each other forever. The owners, and the majority owners rather, Woody Johnson and the Packers, they've all known each other forever. Brian Gutekunst has connections with the Jets. So this is going to happen. It's just more about, Okay, what are you guys going to give us? You're going to give us that 13th overall pick? Hell no, that's not happening. You can take a second and a conditional first or second next year. That's what they're going to get out of a 39-year-old quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. This trade will 100% take place.
Yeah.
Just a matter of how, matter of when, not a matter of if.
Yeah, this is really about coming down to compensation. I mean, both sides, all three sides, three parties, the Jets, the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers all want this to happen.
Yes.
Because the Packers 100% want to move on.
They're done.
They believe Jordan Love is their guy, and Jordan Love looked pretty good filling in last year. He played pretty well. I think he's maybe learned a lot from Aaron Rodgers, so that it might be his time. And obviously the Jets can obviously use the services of a sharp, handed quarterback that's going to go out there and get the ball. Then it's compared to what they've been dealing with Zach Wilson. My God. It's all going to happen. It's just a matter of when. It's a matter of what the compensation is and who's going to try to win the trade. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just when exactly, and it could be during the draft. It could be right after the draft. Who knows? But it's going to happen, man.
All right, let's go into UFC 287 last week. Obviously, hopefully you guys watched.
You know I did. My bank account can tell you that. I paid for it.
I never paid for this shit. I'll tell you that straight up. All right, let's go with the two biggest fights, obviously, of the night. Unless you guys want to go over the.
No, go ahead. This is your out, man.
So let's go with Masvidal versus Gilbert Burns, and obviously, adding to that question, to your reactions to that fight is the Masvidal's retirement. So.
Well, the fight didn't surprise me. I was very confident that Gilbert Burns was going to win that fight because Gilbert Burns has always been and still is very much the better fighter. The biggest storyline for me was the retirement. So I'm not going to get into the political aspects of it all because that's not what we do here. But I found it very, honestly, off-putting that Masvidal, who has a moment to really relish in what he's accomplished, according to people, what he's accomplished in the UFC and being a gatekeeper of sorts
in his hometown,
gets an opportunity to really relish that moment and put the gloves down and talk about just how this has meant so much to him. Instead, he went political and it made it very weird. But I don't want to dive too far off into this. I don't want to make this a real debate, but I want to address what Masvidal actually was. So a lot of people, he's 100% going to make the UFC Hall of Fame, even though I vehemently disagree with that, because I hold fighters to a different standard than I guess everybody else. He was a mouthpiece. He was a showman. He was fun. He was exciting and all that stuff, right? But he was never once a great fighter. And this was shown not just in this fight, but for the last several years. For instance, not only did he never win a real belt, they had to literally make up a BMF belt for him to finally win something. But the fact that he lost 6 of his last 9 fights, he ended his career on a 4-fight losing streak, and his final 3 wins came against Darren Till, who was 6-6 in his UFC career, Ben Askren, who was a joke, 1-2 in his UFC career, and a 34-year-old Nate Diaz, who only fought twice in the 3 years previous. So that aside, it's also the fact that every time Masvidal fought a top-tier fighter near or in their primes, he lost, and most times unanimously. Mm-hmm. He fought 9 fighters in or around their primes that were awesome fighters. Gilbert Melendez, Rustam Kabalov, Benson Henderson, Damian Maia, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Kamaru Usman twice, Kobe Covington, and Gilbert Burns. 6 of those losses were unanimous decisions. 1 of them was a knockout by Usman, one of the most brutal knockouts ever, and 2 of them split decisions. So only 2 of the fights were even close. So for me, I got drugged for that take, for me stating facts here for whatever reason. I've never been a Masvidal fan. I know Trevor's more of a Mozzie guy, but I've never really been. My opinion aside, I look at, showman, mouthpiece, cool. So was Chael Sonnen. He's not an all-time great.
Chael Sonnen was better.
He was good. Yeah, Chael Sonnen was better, but Chael Sonnen was never a great fighter.
He was good.
He was good.
Yeah.
Masvidal was fine. He was decent. He was a gatekeeper, this, that, all that stuff. But I don't look at him the same way I look at other guys in his weight class throughout his career because he never won a belt and he was never the best at his weight class. Respect to having a long career, but a lot of guys have long careers. That doesn't make them really great at what they do. I just wanted to throw that out there. But that fight in particular, it went exactly as I expected it to. Gilbert Burns showed that even at 36 years old, Gilbert Burns can still throw, man. And he's the only guy that survives my dude, Khamzat Chimaev. He's the only guy that went the distance with Khamzat Chimaev.
Yeah.
So that says
Gilbert's
something that Gilbert Burns can still do it.
Gilbert's a dog.
He's a dog, man. He showed it in that fight. Respect to Gilbert. He even apologized later because I think he did something or said something about Masvidal after the fight. Whatever. I didn't hear what he said.
He was accusing him of having oil on him.
Oof.
And
Well,
for him,
take it.
honestly, for Gilbert Burns to come out and say that, Gilbert Burns, you want to talk about class? Is one of the classiest.
He did apologize for it, though.
He did,
Yeah.
but he didn't rescind the comment.
That's true. That is true.
So, and listen,
He said he didn't have proof, supposedly.
I'm not gonna put it past Mozzie, man, for doing something to have some kind of edge, and that's why I kind of always like.
It still didn't matter.
This is why I always kind of like Masvidal though, because he's always embodied the bad guy thing, and I like guys like that a lot of times. Which is why, except Colby Covington,
But at least be good.
I can't fucking stand Colby Covington, but Colby Covington is actually a good fighter.
He's way better than Masvidal.
Yes, he at this point, no doubt. It's
He's
not
a clown,
question.
but yes.
Yeah, he's annoying as hell, but because he embodies the whole. It's a whole other conversation. Mozzie, I like what he came from. The guy came from the slums. He's a volume fighter, which is why I think he gets a little more credit than he deserves in his career, because he's willing to fight anyone at any time, however many times a year. It doesn't matter. He just loves the octagon, and I love guys like that are just gym rat kind of guys, which is why I've always loved and respected him. Do not care what he says about politics. I mute that shit out. It was annoying. I don't like that he ended his career that way either. The whole Let's Go Brandon thing. We don't really need to get into all that. It is what it is. Taking that opportunity to maybe get emotional and have a conversation about how, the dude's fought 50 plus, almost 60 times in his career. The guy's had massive careers, had many fights, come from the streets, ended in his hometown in Miami, which is a cool thing. I wanted to see him. I didn't really care if he won or not, but I liked him. But that fight was a one-sided fight. Gilbert was giving him the beats. He was catching him with the hands, and once he was catching the hands, Mozzie was doing his thing. It's kind of taunting, but he knew he was fucked up, sticking his tongue out and shit, and he knew he was getting ready to get dropped. I honestly thought that fight was going to end in a TKO or a knockout, either side, because both those guys can knock each other out for sure. But Gilbert Burns has got much better chin, much stronger. When things were getting on the ground, I knew it was a wrap. When he was pinning him against the cage and had him on the ground, I knew Mozzie had no chance there. His wrestling skills are never been that great. He's a hands kind of guy. So it was a pretty lame fight, if I'm being honest. It wasn't that great. Wasn't very entertaining.
Dominant.
Gilbert Burns was just dominating the time possession, all that. So, I like my Masvidal. He was a fun guy to watch. Very mouthy. I like guys like that. Always respected him as far as like his ability to fight anybody at any time. He's fought a lot of greats, like you said. He's lost to all of them. Never really been like a true champion. But I think he's a fighter's fighter. He's just like one of those guys that fighters respect, fighters like, fighters want to spar with, fighters want to roll with. He's just like one of those guys, gym rat kind of guy, just loves the game. And I respect and like guys like that, regardless of what comes out of his mouth. Is fucking annoying sometimes, for sure. I'll give you that. And his resume isn't going to really have much once it's all said and done to look back on. That's like, oh, wow, he did that. Oh, wow, he beat that guy at that moment on that stage. And there's not really that moment for him. So he's not going to be a true legend, but I think within the fighter's realm and the fighter's world, he's looked at as kind of like one of those legend kind of guys.
Yep.
So from the fans' perspective, he's not going to be that when it's all said and done, but he's a fighter's fighter. So that fight was okay. I honestly expected more. I wanted to see a knockout. I expected one of those guys to knock each other out because that's what they typically do. So it was okay.
Let's go to the main event, and obviously, I also want to throw in the whole controversy or whatever that's been going on with that main event at the end of the fight, where Adesanya looks for Pereira's son and kind of mocks him of what he did like 6-7 years ago, probably more. Your thoughts?
Oh, to attack that initially, obviously that was very amateurish, or immature. In the moment, I think Izzy got caught up. I'm not defending it by any means. It was very petty. You already won. I kind of felt, and they did spruce it up afterwards. They met each other outside later on. They were videotaped. They were hugging and everything. And Izzy's putting on a show. I probably wouldn't have done it myself. So I think it was something that you probably, like Trevor said, you kind of have to mute it out. It's one of those things where you're just kind of like, oh God, Jesus, you have to roll your eyes at it. It was very immature. Whatever. The fight. Look, Izzy is one of the greatest fighters I've ever seen. I think he's one of the greatest fighters in UFC history. I think he's already
hard.
Dude is. I've never seen him that possessed before. Like from the moment he walked out into the tunnel, it felt like a WWE match. It felt like the emotion of it all.
He was losing a little bit. He was losing that fight
for a second. Mm-hmm. But dude, there was something about it. Like you could tell he's like, over my dead body, I'm getting my belt back.
Yeah.
You just saw it. Like as much as I love Kamaru Usman, when he fought Leon Edwards a couple weeks ago, I didn't see that. I didn't see that fire in his eyes. Like it wasn't there. He looked confident, but Izzy had something else. Man, he looked possessed. And so
they were both confident.
Pereira, obviously one of the most confident dudes in the world, has hands of brick. Unbelievable striker,
stoic,
all that's insanely
shit.
stoic. You don't ever see emotion come out of him.
Scary, man,
for Izzy to get up against the ropes once again, or not ropes, but against the fence again, and Pereira had him right where he wanted him, and then three-piece this dude and put him to the ground like that. I did not expect that. I had Izzy winning the fight. I did not have him knocking out Pereira. I thought if anybody was going to get knocked out for a win, it was going to be Pereira knocking out Izzy again. For him to do that, that is about as much of a statement victory as we've had in the UFC, because this dude beat you 3 straight times. And for you to not only beat him, but put him out, I mean, dude, it's as impressive as it gets.
Yeah.
So, congrats to Izzy getting his belt back. I don't see this dude losing for a while. He's 33, so he's not, young anymore, but he's at the top of his game
He's young
still.
here, man.
Yeah, and he's super intellectual, kind of weird, kind of out there, but I love it. And he's necessarily weird. It's a very, very eccentric dude, and I think that's what gives him that edge, is you don't really understand him. He's very unpredictable, very as stoic as Pereira is, he's as eccentric, and I love that about them. I don't think they're going to fight again. I think they're going to move off of this, and I think that Izzy's going to get somebody else. I know there's other candidates out there that we can talk about later on, but I really love that Izzy got his belt back. Both respectable dudes. If Pereira would have won, I'd have clapped, given him a standing ovation, because he's a worthy champion. He's a great dude, family guy, all that stuff, checks all the boxes. But it's good to see Izzy get the belt back for sure.
Yeah, and man, this matchup between these two guys has been so incredible. I mean, Pereira is that guy is. He is just fun to watch, and this is honestly his moment too. These fights that we just seen on here. These matchup between these two are the biggest fights for Pereira for real, for sure in his whole career. He might not have a higher moment and opportunity to have success in the UFC until in these last 2 fights here. But Izzy, man, I'll quote him. He said, "If you beat me, I'm gonna fight you until I win, until I beat you." I love that mindset. I love that never give up kind of mindset for him. And he is a very odd guy. His brain needs to be studied after he's gone, because the way that guy's mind works, and his charisma and his quick whips and his ability to just say strange things, but it all sounds poetic.
Your mind.
It sounds poetic. Where he's like, I want everybody in the when he won. I want everybody to feel what this feels. Everybody, at least once in your life, to feel the joy that I'm feeling right now, the happiness that I'm feeling.
But you must go for something.
The dude's like,
I can experience it again and again and again.
It's like if I can listen to that before I work out every day, it's like I'd be pumped. I love shit like that. I love it, and the way he was still so with it too. He's just
very present,
very eloquently spoken guy for someone you think wouldn't be sometimes, because he's so goofy, but he's very eloquent at the same time. Very smart, man. So the way he won that fight, he was getting beamed up against the cage, and all of a sudden these counter moves, and then got him with that one, and then he slammed that last hammer fist on him, bro.
To see him come into the weigh-ins with a dress on, and people were dragging him for that. To see him go in there and knock a man out, I love it, man.
Bro.
Where's that little neck piece?
He doesn't give a shit. Yeah, he wears those pearl necklaces.
Yeah,
he don't give a shit, dude. And then he goes out there, he's an absolute killer, one of the greatest to ever do it.
Yep.
John Jones light, if anything, if he can compare him to anybody, his style and the way he's very coordinated in his attacks and his counter moves, and he sets you up, for the next move that he's going to go for. That's very John Jones-esque. You can tell he learned a lot from that kind of style. They're very similar in their styles anyways. Great fight, man. It was a very good main event. I was very happy. I watched it for free, unlike Lance.
Fuck you both,
so I had low investment but high expectations. So it sealed the deal for me, man. It was a great main event. I was glad he was able to get that ring back, or that belt back. And kudos to Pereira, man. That guy is an absolute soldier, an absolute warrior.
He's going up to 205, I think.
Oh, he's gonna move up.
Yeah.
Oh, he's out.
Yeah, he's moving out of middleweight. He's
I think that's good for him.
Middle or light heavy.
He's not the fastest.
Is that light heavy? Yeah.
He's not the fastest guy, so if he can go out there and just have
he can throw hands with those dudes. Yeah,
for sure. Dude, his hands are scary.
I think he can get that belt up in light heavy.
Champion.
Is that Leon? Shit, who is that?
Yeah, that's Leon, right?
No, that's welterweight.
No, that's lower
welter.
than.
Let me look that up and keep going, Trev.
But yeah, absolutely, man. This fight was there wasn't much I can really say else to it, but as far as this, Izzy getting his revenge was such a cool narrative and cool storyline. Because I'll be honest, man, I had my doubts. I honestly thought that this guy, I didn't pick a winner. I didn't really have a one way or the other, but I just
Jamal Hill.
Oh, okay,
Jamal Hill, yeah.
That would be a great fight.
Yep.
That would be a great fight, dude.
Oh my God! Can you imagine that shit?
Battle.
I still probably would pick Jamal Hill.
I wouldn't pay for it and watch it. I'd watch it for free still, but I would
definitely fucking bringing this up.
He's gonna pay for it.
Hey, support the UFC, man. Pay for those pay-per-views. Yeah, they need to pay those athletes more. But man, great fight, bro. I love Izzy. Izzy's gonna go down as one of my favorites. How could he not? I mean, the guy talks some of the best shit and always tends to back it up. But Pereira had his number for the longest time, and he finally overcame that. That's a true warrior mentality, man, to overcome that. And good for him, good for his family, good for him as a personal achievement in his resume. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do next. It's going to be a fun one.
All right, the last thing I want to ask is obviously there's a UFC fight night today in Kansas City, our backyard.
Yes.
I know Lance is gonna go. Are you going?
I'm not gonna go. No.
He'd rather watch it for free.
For UFC, look at me.
He'd rather watch it for free.
Watching it for free.
Yeah, smart man. I got free tickets too.
Yeah, Bet Tick's over here, man.
Yeah. If you're a veteran, make sure you sign up for VetTix. It's a really great website. Gives you free tickets to a lot of things. Obviously, not the most out of this world kind of events, but it does give you tickets to like NASCAR. Obviously, UFC Fight Night tonight. They do concerts here and there. They did Monster Jam couple months ago. I was able to get some tickets. Yeah, man, if you're a veteran, active duty, any kind of thing, vettix.org. Just make sure you sign up.
Get your perks.
Get your perks, man. You earn them, you deserve them, and we appreciate your service. But yeah, you're gonna go to UFC Fight Night. I wanna ask you, it's like, what are you looking forward to tonight? What's the fight that you're really anxious to seeing? What are you expecting from this event? Do you think Dana White, if this is a success, maybe brings us a kind of pay-per-view out here? Well, what are you thinking?
Our guy Harold Kuntz was actually interviewing Dana White yesterday, and I loved the interview because he was asking about what this means for the UFC kind of expanding again. Because if we remember, even though they still continued during COVID, they very much had a limit where they were able to do their performances and their cards. So this now, everything's eased up and everything like that, even from the presidential side of things. Dana White's able to now go back to some of these cities, and he said he was very excited to get back into Kansas City because we have a humongous UFC fan base out here, MMA fan base. They have Shamrock FC out here. They got all kinds of other events out here in Kansas City. So there's a base out here, and it made sense for Dana White to get this back out here. He even mentioned that there are going to be pay-per-views out here in the future. So this is huge. This is huge from a standpoint like that. Because, usually it's MGM that's getting that. It's, Dubai. It's places like that are getting the pay-per-views. I wonder if Kansas City can get pay-per-views.
I wonder if Brandon Moreno is bringing the pay-per-view out here.
I would hope that would be the case, man. He's trained out here. Exactly. So I hope that's the case. But from the fighting standpoint tonight, man, Arnold Allen going up against Max Holloway. Max is a legend. In fact, I think he has like 60 or 61 more strikes landed than any other fighter in UFC history. He has the most strikes attempted in UFC history. He's only 31 years old, so this dude's been throwing hands. This is going to be a fireworks fight. Now, Arnold Allen is the favorite. He's 19-1. Mm-hmm. Max Holloway, I think he's like 23-7 or something like that. I still want to see Max win this fight. The biggest reason why is because I think that's better for the UFC to get him back as a guy that can maybe potentially go for the belt again.
He's a big name.
He's a legend.
A while.
Yes, he's a legend, and he's not old. It'd be one thing if he was like 37, 38 years old, like Masvidal's age, and he's fighting Allen, and it's like, shit, he's just going to get smoked. This is like one of those mercy fights where this is how he's going to go out. No. Holloway can have another 4 or 5 years of good fighting if he wants to. So I would like to see him win this fight. But if Allen wins this fight, it would not shock me at all. Because like I said, this dude has one loss in his entire MMA career, has not lost the UFC level. He's an up-and-comer. I could see this very well going that way, but I'm expecting. I want to see Max win this fight, so I'm rooting for Max. If Max wins, it's got to be because of a TKO. It's got to be because of a knockout. He can't win this fight by decision. I don't think he could last that. So I'm gonna stick with Holloway. It looks like a decent card. There's some guys on there I'm not familiar with. I'll be honest with you. Full disclosure, looks like there's some guys that are getting
a fight night.
Yeah. So it's a free fight, like things like that, So I'm expecting to see some guys. I just want to see dudes impress me because this is how it starts. I remember 3 years ago, I did not know who Khamzat Chimaev was. Then I see him out there in a Strimir shirt, and I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And then I just became the biggest fan. I want to see that tonight. I want to become fans of some dudes tonight. So I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm really, really excited about this card. I'm just excited that Kansas City's back on the map in the UFC spectrum. I want to see some pay-per-views out here, man. That'd be freaking great. Yes, and if Moreno got to headline one,
bro.
Oh my God, we're talking.
I would pay to go to that.
Hell yes,
for sure. I'm just jealous you get to go see Clay Guida fight.
Exactly. Yeah, he's still going.
Clay
right.
Guida, dude. You gotta hear those in-fight burps live, bro. That dude's a legend to me, man. He's a fucking madman. He always loses, but he's just fun to watch.
He's fun.
38-19. The dude has fought so many damn times. Mahomes?
He's
Oh
gonna
my
he's gonna be Jim Miller, man.
There's a up and coming light heavyweight in Azamat Murzakanov.
Yep.
Who's 12-0,
Oh,
who's
yeah,
up and
yeah.
coming. He's going against Dustin Jacoby. I think that's going to be a good
Who's
fight.
the favorite? Jacoby's the favorite. The American? Yeah.
Yep. So I think it's going to be a good fight. It's going to be interesting
He's
to
got
see.
2 first names. I want him to lose.
So
Yeah, and
Got Ricky Bobby out here.
And it sounds like Ozma has 2 last names. So, yeah, but yeah.
Oh, look at that. Dustin Azama, Jacoby Marcus Hagenau. It makes fucking...
Dude, right?
It's the mobs and the chefs, Trevor. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, dude, yeah.
The mobs and the chefs.
I would never fuck with any of them. Ever. I wouldn't even look at them in the eye.
The Vitches, too. You can't go with the Vitches.
Yeah.
Pablo Vitches.
I would be holding their pockets in prisons.
That's his pain for
But yeah, this is gonna be a good card. I'm sure. A lot of times though, watching the people that you're not too familiar with, you get to know new fighters. A lot of these guys, this is like their moment to kind of
Bring
make a
new
name for
styles into
themselves.
the UFC.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
I love even watching like a lot of the prelims is where I've learned like a lot about a guys that I'm like, well, that dude's gonna be something, then they become something. That's fun to spot them before they become a star. So going to watch this live is gonna be a fun experience for you, bro. I would definitely go, but I have my kids. I'm gonna take them to go do some stuff today. But yeah, man, it's gonna be a fun time watching Max Holloway live. And the guy, like you said, is a legend. The guy's been in the game for a long time. We've seen him have electric moments in his career. He's got a great highlight reel of fights. The guy throws hands like no other, man. The guy is just nonstop. His motor is one of the greatest of all time.
Just can't beat Volkanovski.
Well,
That's how it goes.
not a lot of people can.
That's how it goes.
That's a bad
That's how
man
it
right
goes.
there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Arnold Allen is going to win this fight, unfortunately, though. I think he's the better fighter.
Yeah, he is.
But I'm not going to count Max all the way out.
Catch him on that chin, baby.
Absolutely.
They might go the distance. If
If they go the distance, I think Arnold's going to win.
Probably.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Max is a guy that can accumulate numbers and is, if he can, I don't know. It's going to be a fun main event. I would like to see Max Holloway win just because I'm a big fan of his, always have been.
Allen's never fought a striker like Max Holloway.
Sure. But Arnold Allen is the better wrestler, in my opinion, too. So if he gets him to the ground, controls that a little bit more. Both these guys can knock each other out, though. But I would like to see Max Holloway win, but I do, unfortunately, think Arnold Allen's going to win.
I still wouldn't pay for this, but
Fight night, watch it for free.
yeah, that's it.
That's it. That's a great Eddie Hour. We appreciate it. Now, back to the swing of things. We appreciate Eddie being back with the Eddie Hour. We have one more order of business to get to, guys. What's it called?
Hold this L.
Each and every week, we finish off each and every episode with a series of L's in the world of sports. Whether those L's are friendly L's or not so friendly L's in the world of sports, we promise you, who is ever holding those L's in the world of sports deserve those L's in the world of sports. Mr. Eddie Ortiz, Mr. Yo. We'll hand it right back to you. Who's holding the L for you this week, and why is it F1?
Shit, F1 should hold it because there's no fucking races this weekend. It's like crack, It's like
Exactly.
I
You got
need
more
it.
of them races?
Yeah.
Got the itch.
No, I'm gonna give it to the NBA, to Miles Bridges as a whole. I think the way they handled this suspension, I think it came down that he was suspended for 30 games, but apparently 20 of those games have already been served since he was out of the season. Like a month or two before, was it? It's like 2 months ago, right? Or a month ago. And the NBA say that 20 of those already counted. And it's kind of like you're just now announcing the suspension, but you're counting 20 It's like saying like with Deshaun Watson, the whole situation that went on, and then the suspension was announced. He had already missed a year. It's like the MLB saying it's like, oh, he already served the suspension because he didn't play for 16 games.
Right.
I don't see any correlation. Like, if you're gonna announce a suspension, that suspension begins when you announce a suspension. Yeah. Not, oh, he already didn't play 20 games. We'll count those. So now he's only gonna miss 10 games.
Right.
It's kind of like a slap in the wrist, like
Especially for what he did.
Exactly.
Yeah. And obviously he pledged no contest on that whole shit. So we know he did it, 100%. I just think the NBA didn't do the right thing here. I think effective immediately would have been a lot better. It's like, okay, 30 games from now, or like at least half the season from now, would have been a lot better than, oh, he already served 20 games because he didn't play.
Right.
It's kind of like, what?
Right.
Like what?
Was he getting paid those games he didn't play either?
Not that I'm aware of. They're saying that he's going to lose like 1.5 million or something like that in those 30 games.
The context of those games being missed wasn't because of a suspension.
Exactly. So it's like,
it's weird, man. It's like a loophole.
Yeah. So, yeah, the way they handled this, the way they did this shit, it's a slap in the wrist. other players who've got suspended for other things are kind of like looking at this like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Kind of like what happened with John Morant. Obviously, he didn't commit no crime, but yet again, because of the image of the NBA was quote unquote tarnished, whatever it was, he was suspended for 8-9 games or whatever. But
technically, you could say it was legal because he was brandishing a weapon in a state that doesn't allow open carry.
Yeah,
so technically, he could have been actually popped for worse, like you're alluding to. Like they actually took a light on him too.
Yeah, so it's kind of like really like what?
Right.
So yeah, for that reason, NBA Miles Bridges, you're gonna have to do me a favor and hold this L.
Trevor Twiddle, who's holding out for you this week?
I'm going to keep it in the veins of the NBA as well. This one's more directed at an individual and his impact or lack thereof on the team that he's on. Zion Williamson. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with the headlines.
Unfortunately, yes.
And what's been coming out of his mouth when asked about his health and his whereabouts and why he hasn't been playing. There was a recent quote about him saying, "Yeah, as far as physically, I'm good. I'm healthy. It's just a matter of when I start feeling like Zion again." This whole Zion Williamson experience has become to me. I'm comparing it, and it's resemblant of the whole Sinbad Shazam movie. It's like people claim it happened, but has it happened yet? Did it ever really happen? Has Zion ever been a real thing yet in his league?
This only hurt the Pelicans.
This is 100%.
Significantly.
It's fucking them bad, and they had a chance.
It makes the NBA look bad too.
He would 100% boost their odds if they in that play-in series to make the chance to make the playoffs. And that team was good enough.
CJ McCollum called him out.
CJ McCollum publicly called him out on a post-game interview, which is I don't get it. I love CJ McCollum because he's always honest about his stuff, and even on his podcast, regardless if I agree with what he says, a lot of things I don't. But he's a well-spoken guy, and he's obviously always speaks his mind, and I think that's true leadership. But yes, back to the whole Shazam situation. Zion Williamson apparently is this is the quote from the reporter that covers the Pelicans. From what I heard, the Pelicans team doctors have cleared Zion Williamson to play in the playoffs games, to play in these playoff games, the play-in tournament. But Zion's independent team of medical people says he's only 99%. And they don't want to completely clear him until he's 100% ready to go. Side note, who was ever 100% heading into the playoffs?
Nobody.
No one.
Not a single person.
Especially in the West, when you got KD might be getting there. There's a lot of opportunity. LeBron's fucking 55 years old. All these things, you know what I mean? So
ain't that an A+, 99%? Like,
that's what I'm saying, bro.
What's that? What's the closest to 100%?
We need to wait till he's that 0.51% healthier.
God.
That was Skip Bayless saying that, reporting that during the Undisputed on Wednesday. So the team management is increasingly at odds with Zion's stepfather, and they just believe that the stepfather, with the advice of the medical people on their side, is holding Zion back from playing. This is a whole debacle, man. The guy is the most star-studded player that has never really put together a real resume in the league yet. It's wild.
Has he played a full season yet?
No. He's played like 65 games in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Like legitimately. Yeah.
So I mean, it's like he's holding this whole team hostage, man. It's wild. And honestly, if I'm a fan of the Pelicans, I want him to be traded.
100%.
I think you have to be exhausted at this point, and I guarantee if we took a poll for Pelicans fans how they feel about it, because they have talent. You got B.I., you got Brandon Ingram, you got McCollum, you got other guys in that team, Alvarado, young stars and studs on that team that are a lot of good effort guys on that team, well coached team as well.
When Zion's played, he's amazing.
He's incredible.
He's amazing.
He's an insane athlete that plays incredible two-way basketball. Like the guy is unstoppable in attacking the rack. He's Sean Kemp and Shaq.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like that's
he's a compressed Shaquille O'Neal.
Yes,
like
man.
legitimately.
And he can fly like Sean Kemp back in the day. His hops and everything, his ability to block shots. The dude is an absolute freak athlete, but he's unavailable, and he's choosing to be unavailable. And he's 99%. He doesn't want to go out there and try to make help the odds of his team making the playoffs.
Yeah,
even if he played every other game in the playoffs, at least be available. This is wild. I mean, honestly, this is becoming a really bad look for him as a person, as an individual. This feels like the Eric Berry situation too. Obviously, with the Spirit not being in it, he's 99 to almost 100% healthy physically, but it depends on when he's going to feel like Zion again, whatever that means. If you're a fan of that team, that's going to piss you off so bad. And I think there's a legitimate chance he's traded this offseason. I think that's definitely a possibility because I think they've wasted too much time as it is. get rid of him, while they're still. Say he comes back and he plays for you and he gets hurt even further, he gets hurt again and some other new thing, then he's worth nothing,
Right.
They just paid him too, didn't they?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So he's going to have his contract. So who else? And somebody else would take on that contract and his.
I mean, they've taken Russell's. Who would take
Right.
Right. So sports, there's always somebody willing to overpay for a guy that's
Because he
gonna put
sells
asses-
tickets.
Exactly.
He sells
which
tickets.
is wild because he barely plays. So this is the craziest part to me. But yes, so this is going to be geared strictly towards Zion and his party, his team. Zion Williamson and your team, do me a solid and
hold this L.
We know, I don't know if this is happening at least for a while. We all three have NBA Ls. So I'm going to go right back into
We're in the
it.
heat of the NBA right now.
It is, yeah, so it's fair and it's relevant. We've seen over the last couple of years, especially NBA players getting fans thrown out. We see hecklers, stuff like that all the time. And we can overlook those things because, fans think they're entitled and they probably shouldn't cross those lines, and I get that. The one thing, though, that I will never debate on is fucking with family. That's the biggest thing. Don't say stuff about a player's family, and don't ever threaten their family. But unfortunately, that just happened this week.
Children, yeah.
So it's been actually a very funny story, and was pretty effective. On Wednesday night of this last week, the Bulls, DeMar DeRozan's the guard for the Bulls, his daughter, I believe how you pronounce her name is Diar. It's D-I-A-R, so forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it. I've never seen that name before, but it's Diar, however you say it. She's a 9-year-old girl. 9 years old. My niece Trevor's daughter is 10. Okay, so they're in the same age range. She attends her dad's game. She's super into it. And there was this funny thing that was going on against the Raptors, which, by the way, was DeMar DeRozan's former team. He's supposedly beloved there in Toronto still, one of the greatest players in franchise history. She's behind the basket screaming at the Raptors players when they're at the free throw line, and they went 18 of 36 from the line that night. So people are saying, "Oh, that might have worked," and it was kind of annoying and stuff like that. This girl's screaming at the top of her lungs. It's very noticeable, but it's funny and it doesn't. There's no harm in it. Yeah, exactly. It's one of those. That's hilarious, and you just kind of move on. Yeah. That's not the case in Toronto. Supposedly Canadian people are supposed to be friendly and loving and all that stuff. My experience, they are.
Not so much, eh?
Not so much, eh? According to Bleacher Report and Chris Haynes, DeMar DeRozan, DeMar's daughter, was escorted out of Raptors Arena by Bulls security on Wednesday night and had to be escorted by her own father to the team bus because the team was notified by the NBA that she had been receiving severe online threats.
Mm-hmm. That's the illness when it comes to... That's that sect of sports fans. This is ill, bro.
Threatening a 9-year-old girl? 9-year-old, period. What in the fuck is wrong with people? You're threatening a child for having fun? You're threatening a child, period? I thought this was The Onion. Yeah. They picked up the story and made up a funny story. No! This is real. She had to be escorted for her safety. Think about we all three have children in our lives that we love and adore very much. Mm-hmm. Think about them being threatened by other adults. What we would do. That's insane. My blood is boiling for this girl. I've never met her a second in my life. I don't know these people. But that angers me to my core. How fucking dare you threaten a child for, first of all, supporting your father. Second of all, having fun, doing something that's harming literally no one outside of the Raptors' free throw percentage. It's insane.
Be better.
How the fuck are we doing this, man? And I hate to say this, but our world has become so jaded that when I saw her do this, I did have a feeling. I'm like, man, something's gonna fucking happen. Somebody's gonna say something, or they're gonna do. I honestly thought it was just gonna be the NBA saying, "Hey, you can't do that." No, it ends up being far worse.
Yeah.
It ends up being grown fucking children threatening another child. I just, regardless of whoever it is, I don't know the names, I don't know their ats, whatever they are, but you motherfuckers, you do me a solid and hold this up. Leave children alone, you fucking weirdos.
Jesus.
Today was a fun show because we finally had our trio back. Felt right in the world, and we hope that you guys have enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoy every episode. If not, we promise to work harder and better. But we have the draft next week, not next week, but our prediction show will be next week, and then we'll have the draft that following Thursday. And I'm really excited about this, man. None of us have talked about what we predict is going to happen, what Brett Veach is going to do, how many picks he takes, what positions, none of that. So you guys are going to get the raw, authentic, uncut version as we do every single week of what we're going to provide you guys. And if you guys have takes, if you guys want to tell us what you think is going to happen in the draft, where you see the Chiefs going, let us know, man. Hit us up on YouTube, subscribe, hit us up on our Facebook and Twitter pages as well. Join the conversation. It is a daily thing. It is not just a show-by-show basis. Hit us up on YouTube throughout the week because we'll be posting shorts, we'll be posting clips throughout the week. And like I said, the conversation is ongoing across the sports landscape on Facebook and Twitter. You see it on the bottom of the screen here. Let us know what's on your mind. Let us know what you guys want to talk about. Even if it has nothing to do with the Chiefs, we have the Eddie Hour for a reason, man. We talk across the landscape of what's going on. Hit us up, man. We've had some great interactions, and we greatly appreciate all of you that have done that. But we want more of you guys. We want more of you guys to be a part of what we do here. We've been doing this for a long time. We ain't going nowhere, man. So hit us up and let us know what you guys think. But for Trevor Twidwell, for Eddie Ortiz, for the great Clay Wendler that puts all this together on the back end, I am Lance Twidwell. Episode 212 of the Spoken Podcast is done, finished, and finito. And we're back here in 1 week's time giving you our NFL predictions, Chiefs Draft Edition, and episode 213. We out of this bitch.
Later.